What is going on, degenerates? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, your boy over here behind the counter, your man Clint. And I'm looking a little frozen here, so I don't know if something's going. Can you guys hear me in the chat? I need to hear if okay, so you can hear me. Something's going on with my camera though, because I am just standing there. I'm gonna pop my hand, see if that. And we're back. There we go. All right, we got motion. That has never happened to me before. I'm not sure if it's because somebody else, too many people are using Pub Sports Radio all at one time or what's going on. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but we're back. We're ready for action. We're here. Pay-per-view fight week, UFC 97. First fight card of the year, unfortunately, got to start it off on a little bit of a rocky note. Down about 3.8 units. Very, very sad. Manel Kopp dropping off the card, blew half of our parlay, so we made like 0.8 units instead of assuming Manel Kopp was going to win that fight instead of winning 2. That cut into the profit. And then one of my parlays actually links up to this card. We will talk about it a little later on, but I mentioned it last week. So even though we picked a fight winner, that money winning does not roll in yet until this weekend. So little loss, not feeling great about it, but we did cash our first ever Link Memorial Dog of the Week, and that's important. That was important to me. I reverse swept the rest of the straight picks, but at least my boy got home howling for us from heaven. So we are okay. We're going head-to-head with football this evening, folks. We got some big NFL games on, so do me a favor and hit the like button. I understand we're going to have a smaller audience than normal. It is what it is. I know a lot of you will be listening to this from the future, and just know I'm sweating my balls off because I did go ahead and pull the trigger like a madman. Really don't know why. On the Steelers live in this game, they got down like 3 scores immediately, and I hit the money line every single time they got scored against. So I've got 11-1, I've got 20-1, and I've got 30-1, and I also have plus 19.5 on the spread to cover those. So as long as they cover 19.5, I'm gonna break even on the night. But if the Steelers pull off like the outright upset, and Allen does his thing where he throws a bunch of interceptions, your boy's gonna be happy, and it's gonna be right here live on the show when it takes place. So let's get the gamblings going. You guys know I am your friendly neighborhood degenerate, and I've brought in a special guest to talk about UFC 297 for you. None other than Pub Sports Radio's own Stat Daddy, the man himself, Uncle Weezy. What's going on, my guy?
I'm doing good, man. We just talked about this card last night here on Stat Diggers on Pub Sports Radio. It's a fun card. There's a lot of really interesting stylistic matchups here that I like. I think there's a lot more options for good bets this week than there was last week. Last week, Clint, we kind of had a situation where there were too many fat people at the buffet, weren't there? You know, like we got the lines came out a month early. Everybody was starved for MMA action. Everything that was like fairly obvious got just absolutely juiced to the tits. And we were kind of, left holding the bag saying like, am I betting, minus 1,200 Gene Silva this week? Do I like the fight doesn't go to decision for the Hawes fight at minus 1,400? So this week we've got a lot of close fights, a lot of interesting stylistic matchups, and that means a lot more opportunities because we got close lines. The bookies don't know who's going to win, but if we can figure it out, we're going to be very profitable this week. So I'm looking forward to chopping it up with you, my man. This is going to be a fun week to break down.
Love it, Wheezy. Love it. And you could not have hit that any better, man. I had some nice solid CLV on a couple spots last week. Did not matter. And then at the very end of the line, I talked about it on my Monday show last week, and I was like, you know what? I kind of want to play Phil Hawes. And then that alarm bell went off and went, you know what? There's certain fighters, Walker, Hawes, when they've got that durability issue, there's a certain prototypical type of fighter, that power puncher, that you just cannot play them against. And thank God I didn't bet Johnny Walker, but I did buckle and I did bet Phil Hawes. So I gave away a unit on that spot, and that's something, Wheezy. I try not to bet on bad chins. Every once in a while, you've got to make an exception. Made some money on Johnny Walker a few times after everyone wrote him off for dead. So it can happen, but it's got to be the right stylistic matchup. And that's where I messed up, because Bruno, I don't think very highly of Bruno. But if you're not going to be able to take him down, he's going to touch you. And if he touches you when you've got that chin, you're dead. So mistake. First fight card of the year, and I made a mistake. We live, we learn, we paid for the mistake. We're going to roll that in next week, and we're going to use it moving forward to make money instead of losing more money, I think.
Yeah, man. You know, I'm proud to say that I did not make the mistake. I picked Phil Hawes to win this fight, but I didn't bet him. The only reason I didn't make that mistake, my man, is because I've made it twice before. I made it in the Gillian fight. I made it in the Ali Skarov fight. I'm like, hey, man, you're not going to fool me 3 times in a row with that chin, nephew. So, yeah, I think you're a little bit better everywhere. You're more experienced. You fought the better brand of guys. I think you're the better boxer. I think you're the better wrestler. But, yeah, you can't bet on somebody when you know that you're playing a game where you punch each other in the face. And if you can't get punched in the face in this game, you have to be perfect.
Yep.
You have to be perfect, and it's hard to be perfect in this sport.
All right, man. And that's, I felt like I was free rolling because I had not bet Phil Hawes. I was fading Phil Hawes every single fight. Yeah. So it was like, this is the one where like the stock is the lowest it's ever possibly going to go. If I'm ever going to bet Phil Hawes, this is that spot. And I did talk myself into it. Congrats to our guy in the chat, Curtis Clark, saying, love Bruno in that fight. Shout out to you for tuning in here, Curtis. Thank you very much. None other than the man Mushroom himself, and Dixon Sider poking his little head in here a little earlier. Thank you all so much for joining the show. We're going to go ahead and get this bad boy rolling. All right. First fight at UFC 297 is Malcolm Gordon taking on Jimmy Flick. And I'm a fan of Jimmy Flick, Wheezy. I really am. This is a guy that he follows me on Twitter. He's a super nice guy. I kind of buddied up to him, especially like right after he had hung it up and he called for his retirement. I thought he was done with the sport of MMA. So, you know, fun to rub elbows with a former fighter, be a fan of a guy, maybe, you know, maybe get involved with him, that kind of thing when they're done. Because the head and the heart don't work betting sometimes. It's hard to buddy up when they're active and you got to try to fade them, that kind of thing. So I've always tried to toe the line and be kind and say what I need to say, but not overstep, that kind of thing. But man, he is not built for combat. Jimmy Flick has such an explosive grappling game. His UFC debut where he snapped off Cody Durden in that first round with that flying triangle choke, like incredible what he can do. You give him a split second and he can tap anybody out, but he's slow. He's like a less athletic Tim Means. Like he's so herky-jerky on the feet, but he doesn't have the athleticism or speed to like make it work for him. There's no process there. He's just awkward, and he has no chin. So if you bink this guy the wrong way, he's just going to turtle up. And that's the biggest problem, I think, for me, Wheezy, is that when he ends up on the ground, you're like, oh, that's fine. He can still snatch an arm. He can still scramble. Maybe he'll reverse or sweep or something and make it work for him. But he doesn't. Like his last 2 fights back to back, he's just kind of turned over on his side and shelled up and let them just like work elbows to the side of his head until the ref steps in and saves him. So he's taken a little bit of a layoff, probably good for his health, probably good for his durability to do that. And he's taking on a guy who everybody else is really down on as well. Malcolm Gordon, 14-7. The other guy in the division who is maybe the most fragile on the roster, Wheezy. We've got 2 massive glass cannons going at it here in this spot, except Malcolm Gordon may not even be a cannon. He might be a better wrestler than he is jiu-jitsu player, actually, believe it or not. He's good overall everywhere grappling, but the only way he's been able to win in the UFC has been through his wrestling and just kind of blanketing people. We kind of underestimate how big he is. We kind of underestimate how strong he is. And if you can't bink him on the chin, he's actually a very talented mixed martial artist. But he's another guy that can just crumple from a single shot. So I can't suggest anybody put their hard-earned money on this fight, Wheezy, because both guys could collapse at any point in time. Both guys could be caught at any point in time. Malcolm Gordon has... 2 losses, I believe, by submission. So Flick does absolutely have a path to victory. But I'll be honest with you. I think Malcolm Gordon's the side here. He's minus 142. I don't think I can stomach betting a money line on this one. I would rather probably bet violence and go under or something like that. But if I got to make a pick, it's going to be Malcolm Gordon.
Yeah. So here's what I did, right? And I think you're going to want to join me, Clint. I think you're really going to want to join me. You're going to hear what I have to say, and you're going to be like, wow, Uncle Wheezy is really on to something here. So I like Gordon too, right? I think he's probably going to win this fight. But let me ask you something. If you lay minus 142 on Malcolm Gordon, and he loses, how do you think that that's going to affect you mentally?
Call the orderlies, Wheezy.
Yeah, man, just call him, right? You know, you would feel like such an idiot. And consequently, even on the flick side, right? Dude, listen to these distance striking numbers. Now, this isn't just significant strikes. This is distance strikes. So this is, you know, with all the clinch striking stats, all the ground striking stats, all the control time removed from the equation. Jimmy Flick has the worst stats I've ever seen at distance striking range. He lands 2.86 distance strikes per minute, 1.19 less than the divisional average. And he only throws 6.78, which is 4.03 less than the divisional average. He absorbs 9.86 every minute that a fight takes place at distance striking range. Over that 60-second period, that interval, on average, Jimmy gets hit 7 more times than he hits his opponents. There's only a few guys that average more than 7 distance strikes per minute, right? I mean, like, this guy's absorbing 9.86. He's horrible. Jimmy Flick has 7 career losses. Malcolm Gordon has 7 career losses. These guys have been knocked out a combined 11 times. You remember Squid Game? Did you see Squid Game?
Actually, no. I saw all the memes, but it's not my kind of show, Weezy. I avoided that one.
No problem. But there's this scene where, like, they're all like up like 8 stories, and they tell them you got to jump on one of these 2 glass panes. One of them's going to break if you land on it, and the other one isn't, you know? So there's a 50% chance that every time you jump, you're going to fall 8 stories to your death, right? That's what happens when either of these guys land a strike. You know, it's like Squid Game. It's like you're up 8 stories, you know? If Flick lands 1 strike, Gordon is going to crumple. If Gordon lands 1 strike, Flick is going to crumble. So here's what we're doing, right? Because if I laid like 3 units on Malcolm Gordon at minus 142 to win a little over 2, and he wound up getting submitted in the first round by Jimmy Flick, you'd find me in my kitchen with the oven door open, with a thing turned up to 450 degrees and my head in there, and a sign on my back that says no funeral, you know, because I just wouldn't be able to take it emotionally. But here's what we're doing, Clint. We're betting the under 1.5. Minus 125, right? It's minus 125 on the money line right now. 7 of these guys' 9 combined UFC fights have finished under 1.5 rounds. That's almost 78%. But we're only paying 55% for the line. And what we can count on is that these guys are 2 of the least durable people in any weight class in the UFC. Jimmy Flick can flat out submit anybody at any time. He's 14 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his career. Malcolm Gordon is a good wrestler. He could get into a dominant position, land big headshots, ground and pound that could finish the fight. He could land big shots on the feet that could finish the fight, and he's got a good submission game of his own. He broke Bondar's arm. People say that was an injury. That wasn't an injury. He broke his arm in an arm bar, and then Bondar went to go post on the arm that was injured, and then it broke. You know, that's what happened. Even Bisping was like, Brendan Fitzgerald was like, oh, he's got a deep arm bar here, and Bisping goes, no, son, there's no problem there. His arm got broken in there. So Bisping was completely wrong, and he teases Brendan Fitzgerald for being a white belt, but Brendan was right. Gordon put Bondar in an arm bar, and that's what ended the fight. So I'm going with violence here. I don't want to pick a side. Both of these guys are fragile, and I just think that somebody's going to get served here, and it's going to happen quickly.
I hear you, Weezy. I really do. And I'm kind of lining up with my guy Mushroom MMA here from the chat. Flick's like a different man since he unretired. I mean, it's never pretty. Fighters think they got one more in them. It never goes well. And this guy especially, like I just don't think he's built for it in the first place. He's got an outdated style. I'm not sure he was ever truly UFC caliber. He got a big win via sub real quick on Dana White's Contender Series that got him the slot. And those are the kinds of things that I just don't think he can keep up that kind of production. He should have probably stayed retired. And I'll be honest with you, Weezy, if I'm going to pick like an actual outcome here, I would be looking at Gordon by knockout rather than sub, because I think Flick will take that bottom position. I think Gordon's going to be the more physically powerful of the two. And like you mentioned, he's got that ground and pound. He's not a guy that will be picky. You know, if he's got an opportunity to punch somebody, he will take it. So I think we're going to get a Gordon TKO. I like that under 1.5. And believe it or not, I think I'm picking Malcolm Gordon in a fight in the year of our Lord 2024. Hard to see that coming. I did not have that on my bingo card coming in.
I'm gonna call the gas company, make sure they turn off the gas to your house about the time that fight starts, just in case you want to put your own head in the oven if that one goes tits up for you. But yeah, that's that's a good look, Clint, just because Flick's never been submitted. He's been knocked out 6 times. He's lost by decision once, but he's never been submitted. So yeah, Gordon probably does win this by KO if he wins it inside the distance.
Yeah, and I can't think we're going to get a good price tag on it. So, you know, everybody listening at this point in time, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, even overseas, you know, we always look at BetOnline for the props this early in the week because none of the U.S. books ever have them. BetOnline doesn't even have props out for us today. So I have no numbers. I can't quote you anything. With this guy getting knocked out so many times, they're not going to give you any type of a sexy number, and that's kind of the problem. Trusting a guy like Malcolm Gordon, I think I would want a sexy number, Wheezy. So more than likely a pass. Maybe a violence bet. Malcolm Gordon KO probably goes in one of my, 3-legger sprinkle parlays, and we move on. The next fight up, we've got Jasmine Jasudavicius taking on Priscila Cachoeira, and I am invested, Wheezy. I mentioned earlier, just before we got started, that I have a parlay that is linked up to this card, and it anchors on none other than Jasmine Jasudavicius. So for those of you who live under a rock and don't know, we are in Canada, baby. UFC 297 is a Canadian card, and we talked a couple times last year about how the UFC is really trying to do something in Canada because they really just don't have a presence there anymore. You know, Canada is a massive outlet for MMA. They had GSP for all those years. Like, it's a big deal. Canada loves MMA. The UFC has loved going to Canada, but they have not had anybody to carry the torch. Well, all of a sudden, they've got enough prospects to put on a full-on Team Canada card. Now, I forgot to mention this, but technically, Malcolm Gordon is Team Canada from the last fight breakdown, so something noteworthy here. But Jazz is going to be the next fighter up, and she seems to be somebody who's got a bit of a following in Canada. The UFC seems to like her. I don't. She's 34 years old. Wheezy, she's huge for the weight class. She's a decent grappler. And every single one of my breakdowns previously has been, Jazz is really not that good. She's just big. I've said that every single time I've broken down a fight of hers. However, in saying that, I still picked her to upset Miranda Maverick because I was like, look, in women's MMA, sometimes all you need is that physicality. Sometimes all you've got to do is be the bigger woman. And especially when you've got a grappling advantage, that will take you places. Now, Tracy Cortez, I feel like, is just an elite level prospect. She's so much better everywhere, and she's got the grappling base. That was an easy bet. That was an easy turnaround and fade the narrative. Everyone thought, oh, Jasmine just beat Miranda Maverick. Now we pile. No. Tracy Cortez, easy peasy. Now we've got another spot here, Wheezy, where they're setting up Priscila Cachoeira. This is a prospect who has really lost any and all direction, I believe, in the UFC. She's a fun fighter. She's got big power. I'm a fan of hers. You know, I've gone to war with her a couple different times. The KO prop against Lipsky is one of my absolute favorites. I've gone to good places. Gina Mazzani, I think, was my number one favorite memory with Priscila Cachoeira because she was an underdog in that fight, and I sprinkled the round 2-3 props and the KO prop. And, just gorgeous when people were trusting Gina Mazzani with their money in that spot. But our relationship has come to an end, Wheezy. This is the end of the road. There's nothing more I can do for her, unfortunately. She has a massive, massive issue with grapplers. We saw it in the Gillian Robertson fight. She resorted to eye gouging my girl Gillian to try to get out of that position because she has no skills whatsoever on the mat. She is big, she is strong, but she's 35 years old. She's not getting any better. She's not improving. And this is a fight that the UFC has put together for the sole purpose of Jasudavicius getting a win on her home soil in Canada. Like I mentioned last week, I parlayed her up with none other than Joshua Van, who got the night started off for us really well. And I've got minus 125, 2.5 units to win 2 here rolling into this card. And I feel pretty damn good about it, Wheezy. I think it's Jazz, and I think it's probably Jazz by sub.
I think it's Jazz by decision. But either way, this is kind of this has the feel of the kind of match where like the UFC calls up Jasmine's manager and says, "Hey, who do you guys want? You know, you're going to be on the Canada card. Go talk to your fighter and give us a list of names, you know, that you want to fight." I would imagine Cachoeira would be number 1 on that list for Jasmine because
absolutely.
You know, there are some stats that I wrote down that I have in my notes here. I want to read to you for this fight. It's pretty alarming. Priscila Cachoeira's grappling defense, Clint, is just so bad. So the hole in Cachoeira's grappling defense is obviously there to be exploited. Jasmine wins 91% of the control time positions in her fights. Cachoeira wins 6.5% of the control time positions in her fights. And here's a very important stat, Clint, that illustrates the problems that Priscila has with grapplers. In the fights where her opponents, Priscila Cachoeira's opponents, attempted at least one takedown against her, Priscila is 1 win and 4 losses in those fights where at least one takedown was attempted against her.
Wow.
She's allowed 12 takedowns in those 5 fights. That's 3.5 takedowns allowed per 15 minutes. And in those fights, she's allowing 55% control time to her opponents. Those kind of defensive grappling stats against fighters that bothered to wrestle are exactly why Jasmine Jasudavicius is an 80% implied favorite right now on the money line. So Cachoeira, 7 wins and 0 losses to the KO in her career. Cachoeira, 0 wins and 3 losses to the submission. It's just clear. All you got to really do is look deep into the numbers, and you're going to see a pure striker in Cachoeira. I mean, DC laughs when he calls her fights. He's like, look at she's got her right hand just cocked up by her chin. You know, she just keeps it right here. And like, she doesn't even use her left arm. Her left arm is there for defense. It's there to like swat girls away.
She's not hiding anything.
You know, yeah, she's just looking to load up that right hand and drive it right through your face. She wants to punch mud holes through your face. She's very predictable. And Jasmine, so strong in the clinch, such a good wrestler. When she gets her opponent down, she keeps her there. Very fantastic grappling efficiency numbers for Jasmine Jasudavicius. So this is a tailor-made matchup for her to go out there and win all the minutes on the ground here. We'll see if she can get to a dominant position, knock her out with some ground and pound, or get the submission. I'm leaning towards that decision because Cachoeira, you could say what you want about her. She's got a ton of heart. She'll cheat as much as it takes in order to, you know, to survive, to have that one chance to get up and land that big right hand. She's going to push through. If she has to gouge your eyes, if she has to try to rip your top off, if she has to grab the fence with her hands or her feet, if she needs to bite you, if she needs to do an oil check, she'll do anything, you know. She can even like pull like some professional wrestler shit, like come into the cage wearing a cast and then pull a foreign object out of the cast. You know, I mean, like we know that's what she can do. So yeah, you always have to kind of respect her ability to get a knockout. Priscila has that power. She melted Ariane Lipski, but I think Jasmine wrestles, wins the minutes, and cruises to a decision here.
Wheezy, my grandpa always said, if you're not eating, you're not trying. And I know that was mostly involved when we were playing things like Uno But
Monopoly.
I think it holds true here in this spot as well. So you can always definitely count on her doing whatever it takes to win the fight. But I want to harken back to that Gillian Robertson fight just for 1 second here. One thing to note is that Gillian has since moved out of this weight class because she felt she was too small and didn't have that physical advantage. She's 5'5" with a 63-inch reach. Jazz is 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. She is just a larger version of Gillian Robertson. So I think
Miranda Marat Maverick, who absolutely drowned her. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, small Gillian Robertson, small Miranda Maverick absolutely rode her.
And one thing that maybe we're not giving enough credence to here is that Jasmine is incredibly aggressive, and she's not as slick as someone like Gillian is. We might want to just take a peek at like the TKO prop, Wheezy, because I could see her drowning Cachoeira and going to town with elbows from top position. And if because she's not going to rely on the backpack like Gillian Robertson did. She's not going to need to stay tight and hug to a larger, stronger opponent. She'll be big enough to go wherever she wants to. She'll pass, she'll smash and pass, she'll get to mount. And if that's the case, I think she could just elbow her to hell. She may not knock her out because Priscila Cachoeira is tough as nails, but the referee might step in and save her. So I might actually switch my prediction here from the sub to a TKO, round 2, round 3, something like that.
Yeah, Jasmine was this close to knocking out Fernandez with elbows from the crucifix at the end of the second round of their fight. So, yeah, it could absolutely happen.
I think she's looking for it, Wheezy. I'm going to go ahead and switch that prediction. We're going to take a little taste of that TKO. I've already got the money line. We'll take the KO prop. Those round 2, 3 TKO sprinkles on either DK or FanDuel. Those are going to be sexy this week. I like that. All right. And as we roll right along, folks, a comment here from our guy in the chat. I highlighted it up a little bit earlier, but Curtis saying Canadians went undefeated last time a card was here. There were like 4 of them, though. This card is flooded with Canadians. So I don't think we're going to have a Canadian parlay because there's no chance they sweep this card. There's just too many of them, but we'll highlight out the sides, obviously, every single time we step up through them here. Yohan Lainesse carries the Canadian flag, welcoming back Sam Patterson and welcoming Sam Patterson to a new weight class, I might add. This is a super intriguing fight, Wheezy, and I have taken a position here on this spot. Yohan Lainesse is... he's Canadian Sam Alvey. He's big. He's slow. He's low volume. He's got pop in his hands. He's got power in no matter which hand he wants to throw. But the funniest thing was, like, do you remember a fight or two ago when everyone was like critiquing his lack of any type of cardio whatsoever? And he's like, no. We went to the drawing board. We worked on this. Fixed the cardio. The cardio is going to be there. And then he proceeded to like be extra low volume and get the brakes beaten off of him for 15 straight minutes. I've done everything in my power to fade this man, Wheezy. He is 1-2 in the UFC, and in my opinion, he should be 0-3. I do not know how he won the decision against Darian Weeks. One of the worst split decisions I think I've ever seen. I am a big advocate for the numbers lying, right? I've talked about it on the show a bunch of times. You can't always get everything from the numbers. Not all significant strikes are created equal. So even if someone has more significant strikes watching the fight, the other guy's face might be completely swollen and busted up, and that's why. But you look at this one, and Darian Weeks doesn't have a scratch on him, and he doubled up this man in strikes. Like, it wasn't even close. It was a masterclass. Weeks should have got decision very easily. Not only that, this man doesn't have a ground game. Mike Malott came in and sliced through him like a hot knife through butter and had no problem getting it to the mat and tapping him out almost instantaneously. So now we got to talk about Sam Patterson. It's been a minute since we've talked about the future Sam Patterson. 10-2-1. He lost his UFC debut, and I think that's what everybody really remembers him for. He came in as a very highly touted prospect. Guess what, Weezy? From Dana White's Contender Series, and he got smoked by Yanel Ashmoes. I was very, very excited to be on the Red Fox in that spot. Cashed my Yanel Ashmoes bet, but not the way I expected it to. I really didn't see that fight playing out the way that it did, and I was betting on the guy he was fighting. I thought it was going to be grapple heavy. I thought it was going to be grindy. I thought it might be a close contested decision where he just was able to get on top more often, and he caught a lucky punch, and then he transitioned to mount quicker than anybody I think I've ever seen in my life before, Wheezy. And Patterson just didn't have a second to respond and eight straight punches to the grill before the ref was able to step in. I mean, the speed that Ashmo's hit him with, it was literally a did you catch a number on that bus type of moment. Like, could not believe that just happened and how quickly it happened. Sam Patterson is really good at kicking range. He likes to pick and poke at guys, keep them at distance. He's actually got some serious power of his own, Wheezy. When he goes 1-2 down the pipe, the elbows, the knees, he is a born finisher. He's only 27 years old, and everyone wants to proclaim him a dead prospect when, guess what? He's coming off Dana White's Contender Series where he's as hyped as he's ever going to be, steps into the deep end against a good opponent that nobody knew about, and has proven himself to be UFC caliber. And of course, he slipped up. Young kid mistake. Now he's taken a year off since then. And just like our bet last week, I think that's a good thing. For a kid that's 27 years old, taking a year off of competition to improve his skills, recover his health, make sure he's medically cleared, develop. And also, we talked about the size briefly at the beginning of this exceedingly long breakdown. I promise you guys I'll let Wheezy talk. He's massive, Wheezy. Massive. He's one of those guys where I don't know how he made the weight in the first place. This move up a weight class, personally, obviously we'll find out today, only benefit him. I don't see how him sacrificing the water in his brain to make a weight where he's fragile is better. Like, he's going to be bigger, he's going to be stronger, he's going to be better up a weight class, and I think that makes him far more dangerous. The final nail in the coffin for me here, Wheezy, is that Patterson's path to victory in almost every single one is he's a comeback kid. He's got great cardio. He's got great pace. He's got great pressure. And you go back to the regional scene when he fought Kamil Magomedov. This was 3 years ago at this point. He got mauled by a Magomedov in the first round. I mean, looked like he was dead, gone, and out of it, and just getting wrecked. Turns it up in the second round, flips the script, chokes this guy out. So I've got youth and cardio against a guy who I think is fragile and who we know, absolutely, without a doubt, is a gas bag, Wheezy. I would call Yohan Lainesse a glass cannon, but I have coined the phrase, he is a gas cannon, because not only is he fragile, Wheezy, but he tires out within 4 minutes of the fight getting started. So could Yohan Lainesse crack Patterson in the first round the same way Yanel Ashmos did and meme him and finish him right away? Yes. Yes, he absolutely could. Every single other avenue of victory belongs to Sam Patterson. Folks, I feel extremely convicted on this one. The wrong fighter is favored in this fight. I've got 2 units on Sam Patterson. I'm already in. If the market tells me I'm wrong, Wheezy, and it starts going the other way, I will absolutely sack up and double down in this spot, because I massively disagree with Yohan Lainesse being a favorite over anybody at the UFC level. Again, he could KO this guy on the first punch. It is possible. It could happen. I'm not saying that's not possible. But if he doesn't, he's going to get worked at range. He's going to get out-volumed at distance. He's going to get taken down. He's easily submittable of a kid with this level of skill set. I am on the Sam Patterson train, Wheezy. Let me know how insane I am and what you think of this matchup.
Yeah, well, you had the right guy on this week, because like I'm already kind of a fan of Sam Patterson. I love guys that have pace, pressure, volume. You know, when you have that combination of attributes. What?
Wheezy, I got to interrupt you.
Steelers
touchdown
coming back.
Steelers.
Uh-oh.
10 minutes left in the game. Let's go.
How much are they down?
What's up?
How much are they down?
So now if they successfully kick the field goal, they'll be down 1 touchdown. They'll be down 7 points. So I am beyond live.
What a comeback.
I'm beyond live on all my money lines. And all you people said the game was over and dead. You can suck it. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. Go easy. Go right ahead.
Yeah. I like Patterson, man. You know, I've watched this guy's entire career. You know, he was fighting in Brave since he had a debut in Brave where he got knocked out in the first round by Hardeep Rai back in 2017. And since then, he had a couple of fights, and then he went back to Brave to fight Ahmed Amir. If you haven't seen the Ahmed Amir fight, you got to watch that fight, right? Ahmed Amir is a crotch sniffer. a Russian crotch sniffer who's just out there grinding with the wrestling. And he is grinding Patterson. And Patterson is just fighting it off. He's staying in the clinch, not really letting him take him down, getting taken down, getting back up, threatening with the guillotine over and over again. You see Amir start to gas out a little bit in the first because Patterson is just not giving up. In the second, Amir is having more success with the grappling, but you really see that gas tank start to fade. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to watch this third round. Dude, Patterson beat 7 shades of shit out of this dude in the third round. He is just diving on legs. Patterson's throwing him around like a rag doll, beating him up, getting on top, pounding his head through the canvas. This guy was holding on for dear life. It wound up being a draw. I don't think it should have been a draw. I think Patterson legitimately 10-7'd this individual in the third round. It was such an important and impressive display of one of the most bettable attributes that you can have in MMA, and that's conditioning. Conditioning can hide so many other problems, but we do know that there is a problem with Patterson's chin. His only 2 losses, he's been knocked down and knocked out. And so we do know that this guy has been knocked out. He doesn't have great or above average durability, but he's now moving up to 170 pounds. So that might change. But what doesn't change is the cardio. This guy's going to have an easier weight cut now. He's still huge for the division. Just getting the much better conditioned athlete. I mean, like, look, if this fight gets out of the first round, Yohan Lainesse's win condition goes down to meme knockout. Lucky, just overhand, closing your eyes, just throwing and landing a big shot. That's what it comes down to, because Patterson is going to kick the shit out of this dude after 5 minutes because the conditioning gap is so huge. The age gap is huge. The size gap is huge. If Lainesse chooses to wrestle, and he does do that sometimes, he's getting guillotined. I promise you. This guy's guillotine defense is phenomenal. He never goes arm in, always power, always setting that up when you get in on his hips. He's got the long arms and the bony limbs that set up that submission beautifully. The only reason I haven't gotten on it yet is I want to see where all the props open up. I want to get on a Sam Patterson round 3 prop. I want something like plus 1,400. And I want to hammer it, Clint. I want to win like 5 units if he drowns this dude in the third round, because it's a very predictable outcome when you watch the tape on these guys. Lainesse has ass conditioning, ass volume, but he throws with power, purpose, and intention. This guy can absolutely hurt you early in fights. But when you watch Patterson, you don't see this guy losing second and third rounds ever. His volume's too good. His grappling defense is too good, and he's well-rounded enough and smart enough to know when to strike, when to clinch up, when to wrestle. So, yeah, I'm with you, Clint. I haven't gotten on the money line yet. It probably will be a bet, but I don't know how big of a bet it's going to be for me, because I'm going to be looking for those third-round props this week, nephew, and I'm looking to score big on it.
I like it, Weezy. I like it a lot. So what we've got going here is I clicked the little refresh button over on Bet Online, and some of these props are coming up. We actually do have some numbers to look at. Unfortunately, they're all over it. Patterson by sub is just 3-1. Yeah. I was hoping they'd be sleeping on that number a little bit. And Patterson round 3 is 9-1, which is not sexy at all with these types of props. You would want a little bit more bang for your buck, I'd think, on that kind of a number. I did bet the 9-1 on Josh Van last week, round 3. Can't believe it, man. 20 seconds. If he just, the ref kind of stays away for 20 stinking seconds, I go ahead and I cash that ticket easy peasy. So just missed it. I don't mind it. The round 3, 9-1. I was hoping it'd be like a 12-1 or something like that. We'll see what we get stateside later on in the week, but I'm right there with you on the breakdown, man. I think both those make perfect sense.
Yeah, man. Plus 900 for a third round prop. That's about as sexy as Blagoy Ivanov.
I like it. I like it. All right. Next fight up. We got you know what?
Where's your hat? Get it. There it is.
We got my girl. Gillian Robertson taking on Polyana Viana. And I like this fight for my girl, Gillian. Wheezy, I'm not even going to start and try to like do the fair, back and forth where I'm going to go ahead and lay it out for both sides. No. It's Robertson season, baby. I do have yet another parlay. Gillian Robertson synced up with somebody a little later on in the card that we'll talk about when we get there. But the first leg of this 2-leg parlay is my girl, Gillian Robertson. Gillian, we talked about her briefly in the last couple of fights, right? We already kind of touched base on her when we spoke about Priscila and Jasmine. She is fighting at a new weight class where instead of being undersized, she is the weight bully. At 115, she's shown to be incredibly strong. I still think that at this point, she's kind of a hopeless cause when it comes to her striking. She doesn't really do anything well or right on the feet. God bless her. She continues to work on it and try to get better in that area. But she's strong enough now to take these girls down, hold them, grapple them, mess them up from top position, things of that nature, because that was the big issue with the 125ers. Is she simply was not able to match physicality with some of those women. And when you're grappling, you need to be able to bully just a little bit. She is a throat cuddles specialist. She's got some of the slickest BJJ we've ever seen. She also likes her ground and pound. She's looking for that TKO win. Hasn't quite gotten it yet, unfortunately. But I think if she keeps going the way that she is, she might just get there. Polyana Viana, 13-6. And frankly, Wheezy, as much as I love Gillian, and you guys know that, I think we can classify both these women almost as busted prospects. Like, they're not going to reach the heights that we thought maybe they could when they first got signed. Polyana's 31 years old. She is tall. She is lanky. She is extremely aggressive. But her wins, Wheezy, are really under the dregs of this division. Jinu Frey, she knocked her out. She's shown to be fragile here towards the end of her UFC career. Mallory Martin, Emily Whitmire, women who have been cut from the organization. Her losses include people like Tabitha Ricci, Veronica Hardy, No Shame, Hannah Cyphers, Wheezy. That's the big red flag. The loss to Hannah Cyphers. And on top of that, she's been submitted twice in her professional career. She plays bottom too much. Chris asking where I got the hat. Straight from Gillian's website, baby. I wish she didn't like sign or kiss it for me or anything like that, which is unfortunate. But I got to support my girl after cashing a ticket. That's the rule, Wheezy. If I make like a really big bet, I'm going to go get fighter merch and support the fighter that cashed the ticket for me that way on those big special bet type of situations. But anyway, so you've got this girl, Polyana Viana, who is so extremely confident in her ground game. She's got 8 wins by submission all her own, that she'll play bottom. And anytime you get a strong grappler who prefers top versus a strong grappler who prefers bottom, I'm going to take the top position fighter, Wheezy. 9 out of 10 times, I'm going to take the top position fighter, unless your name is Diego Lopez. Then maybe I'll consider taking the bottom position fighter, but that's a very rare situation. I don't think Polyana Viana is going to catch Gillian in an armbar. Obviously, it could happen. Something like that is possible, but she's only been submitted once in her entire professional career, and she's shown that she's more than willing these days to grind out if need be. She's more of a finisher, obviously, but she does have 2 wins by decision, so Gillian can shift gears and go into full-on grappling top position mode if she needs to, and I think I trust that here. Minus 250, maybe it's a little wide. Maybe that's a tough ask, but I think the suspect takedown defense of Polyana Viana is going to kind of end this thing for her. I got Gillian. What do you think of this one here, Wheezy?
Yeah, I agree with your breakdown because, obviously when you see somebody like Gillian, who's attempted 58 takedowns in 15 fights, you can count on her to wrestle. You can count on her that Gillian knows what her path to victory is. It's not standing and banging. I don't think she's ever won a fight like that. She suffocates people. Like you said, 10 wins of her 12 pro wins are inside the distance, 9 by submission, 1 by KO. And in those fights where she's winning by decision, it's just she's not quite getting the submission, but she's just wearing on these girls and racking up a bunch of control time. She's controlling her opponents almost 42% of her 146 minutes in the UFC octagon. She's got almost 42% control time for her. So she does really well what Polyana gives up, because Polyana has 4 takedowns. She's allowed 9. She's got 12 takedown attempts. She's seen 16, but she's only winning 17% of the control time positions. She kind of likes being on her back. She likes throwing up arm bars. She's got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, a very threatening submission game from her back. So she trusts that submission game, and she doesn't mind being there for 2-3 minutes, letting those minutes fade away, looking for the moment, because Polyana Viana has never won a decision in her career. 0-4 to the decision. And with Gillian, she's 2-6. So it's not like she's a great minute winner either. So both of these girls finish fights. 100% finish rate for Viana, an 83% finish rate overall for Gillian Robertson. So I think this is funny because they're both durable too. Combined 14 losses, only 4 of them inside the distance. So they're not even getting finished 50% of the time. They're actually getting finished at a lower percent than what the division does as a whole. So it's an interesting stylistic matchup because I think Polyana is absolutely the better striker. 4-inch reach advantage. She just looks a lot more technical on the feet. She throws with power. She's got some knockouts. Her punches come straight down the pipe, and she uses that length that she has really well. But it's just that I kind of feel like Gillian, anytime that she gets uncomfortable on the feet, I'm taking this girl down. And what is Polyana going to be able to do to stop it? Probably not much, Clint. So I think Gillian's going to win this fight, win the minutes on the ground. She just has to stay safe from the submission game of Viana. Try to get into half guard. Try to get into half guard, avoid getting swept, avoid the Kimura. And then you don't have to worry about the arm bars and the triangles that Polyana is going to throw up, which is her best game. So I think that's what she's going to look to do. I think Gillian Robertson by decision is probably the most likely outcome here. But the line is a little wide.
Line probably a little wide, but I'm with you, man. I think we're on the right side. I think we're picking the fighter that gets her hand raised at the end of the day, best path to victory, etc., things of that nature. So I went ahead and did it. Got plus money on a parlay. Always love seeing that. So I will take it, and I'm going to root my girl home. Next fight up, I can go ahead and remove the hat here. Damn it, the Bills scored. That's frustrating. All right, we've got Serhiy Sidey taking on Ramon Taveras. 2. Wheezy, this is a rematch. It's crazy because when I started looking at these guys, I'm like, man, both those names sound familiar, but I didn't really know why they sounded familiar. This is a rematch from Dana White's Contender Series, folks. We are running it back almost immediately. We had an early stoppage situation, and Dana White was extremely unimpressed with it. They went ahead and they brought Taveras back on Dana White's Contender Series immediately, and he knocked his dude out in 29 seconds. So if you get an early stoppage type of situation and you come back and you win emphatically like that, Dana White's going to like that. Dana White's going to enjoy that, and I think he'll throw you a bone here. So they're going to go ahead and run this fight back in the big cage under the big lights. Sidey is Team Canada 10-1, and he's got that pawing lead hand, man. He's got that tall man style where he's really parrying well. He shells up and then fires back, counterattacks, really long legs. He likes that knee up the middle. He's going to be 3 inches taller. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage. And then Taveras in this one, 9-2. He's a Team Alpha Male prospect. So you kind of know what they're all about. It's that sprawl and brawl, capable of wrestling type of fighting style, big power, fast hands. That left lead hook of his is so fast, Wheezy, and it's really got some cracking, stinging power in it. He does tend to stand directly in front of his opponents, which can be a bit of an issue there for him. But it's an interesting fight, man. It's one that I have zero interest in getting in on because it looked to me like Taveras was the better of the two fighters, even though he lost the first fight. And he started getting a little cocky. He started getting a little overconfident, played a little too much, and that led to him getting caught. When Sidey caught him, sat him down immediately, and the ref just jumped on him, and that was it. It was over. We really didn't get the opportunity to see him recover or bounce back or see how he comes back from getting stung the way that he did. Would he have continued to just march his man down? Would he have landed something big later on? He was just barely missing with a couple of those big left hands that he was swinging in that fight. So I'm going to lean to the dog in Ramon Taveras here in this spot, Wheezy. But because it's going to be highly charged, because both these guys are off of Dana White's Contender Series, and we really still don't know a whole lot about either of them, I'm probably going to sit this one out. What do you make of this fight?
Yeah, I think I might sit it out as well. I've looked into this fight. I've taped both of these guys, and you know, there's some reasons to like CD on paper, right? He's younger, he's taller, he's longer, he's a little more experienced. He's got some 5-round experience, and I think when you watch his tape, you'll agree that you know the clinch game is good, the grappling game is good, and the striking's good. He's like the more well-rounded guy, in my opinion. Now Taveras. He's fought some bigger names. He's got a win over Charles Bennett, for instance. Everybody remembers him from Pride back in the day. A wild man. He's got a win over a UFC veteran in Martin Day. You know, but that was a weird fight. If you go back and you watch that fight, Day gets dropped in an exchange. And then Taveras jumps on a guillotine and he winds up finishing with the guillotine. But then when you go and you watch how he got dropped, it's a headbutt. He headbutted him, you know. So and then he beats, you know, like Bennett, you know, which is not really a big deal. Guy's got 50 professional fights and old as hell. And then he goes in there to the UFC bulldog boxing guy. He just went to Alpha Male, I think, a couple of weeks before the City fight, and then he went there and then he stayed there when he got the fight against Cortavius Ramius almost immediately after because of the poor stoppage. So. Excuse me. And I agree with you, Clint. You know, it kind of looked like Taveras was starting to get into that pocket, you know, because Taveras is a pressure fighter. I like that because he's not the bigger guy. He wants to box. So in order to get to boxing range, you can't wait for your opponent to get into your range and do you a favor. You got to pressure. You got to walk the guy down. And that's what he does. I love Taveras' pressure. I love that he gets into boxing range. He's got nice hands once he gets there. And he's really comfortable in the pocket. And that's kind of a rare thing. Reminds me a little bit of Josh Van in that Van just marches forward. And once he gets into that pocket, he's so comfortable and so confident in his head movement, his ability to be able to slip and rip. And when you're landing counter shots, they just have so much better of a chance to drop your opponent because they might not see it coming. So I kind of feel like a lot of the things that I look for on paper kind of favor City, but I also like the pressure and the boxing of Taveras, and he's got a decent submission game of his own. We haven't seen much of it on tape. We've seen more from Sidey, in my opinion. And another thing I like from Sidey, dude, this guy's durable, and this guy's got a ton of heart. Go watch that Matteo Vogel fight. Vogel had him in so many bad positions. Vogel's a stud, very good fighter out of Canada, a relentless grappler. They call him the Tick. It's such an appropriate nickname because the guy just won't fuck off. He is just absolutely stays. Dude, Sidey wore this guy for 15 minutes, still got reverses, still got up. He fended off about 9 deep submissions in that fight. And when it was on the feet, Sidey's landed jump knees, kicks, big uppercuts, shots that had Vogel in serious trouble. So I really like the durability of Sidey, the heart of Sidey, youth, length, experience. I think he's more well-rounded, and I think he's got more, and he's definitely got more 5-round experience. But Taveras, for the skills that he has, he fights the absolute perfect style for somebody that has the strengths of pocket boxing, countering, good in-pocket defense, bringing that war, bringing that pressure. So it's a fascinating fight. I think it could go either way. Maybe the plus money on Taveras is the way to go because I think these guys are very well matched.
Yep, it's going to be fun, Weezy. This is going to be a banger. I can't wait to run this one back. Hopefully, neither of them has gotten smart since the Contender Series, and we just get another absolute barn burner. Usually, it takes, a fight or two to get their feet wet in the UFC brand, and then they start kind of slowing down the pace and having more success. Hopefully, these two just car crash again. I want to see a good fight. I want to see a back and forth war. Dog or pass for me. All right, everybody, we've got over 100 live viewers here tonight. Do us a favor and hit the like button, please, and thank you. Next fight we want to talk to you about, Charles Jourdain takes on Sean Woodson, and Charles Jourdain is the representative from Canada in this fight. And he's also going to be my 2-leg parlay anchor, Uncle Weezy. I am fading the recency bias that is coming in here in this spot. Sean Woodson could not have looked better in his last fight, Wheezy. Not only could he not have looked better, but he has a new wrinkle in his game. He showed some next level grappling. This man was able to take people down and smother his opponent, be a bit of a bully. But that was against Dennis Bazooka. And as much as I like Dennis Bazooka as a fan, Wheezy, as much as I think he's a fun fighter, this guy is 0-2 so far in the UFC. I don't know that he's going to be UFC caliber. I don't know that he's a guy that the UFC is going to keep around very long, quite frankly. And it looks like he's just not cut out at this level. And because of that, I think we're going to get a decent spot here where Sean Woodson looked like he was absolutely incredible in his last fight, but really beat nobody. If you look over his record, he's got a win over Colin Anglin and Youssef Zalal, two guys in 2001 who are since no longer with the company. He's got a draw with Luis Saldana, the lowest fight IQ fighter to ever step foot inside the UFC's octagon, who is beating the brakes off of Woodson and then let the fight slip away from him and forced a draw. And then you've got a Darce choke in the third round from Juicy J. Julian Erosa, a guy who, frankly, Wheezy has very sketchy durability. So you're telling me Woodson, who's supposed to be this big, lanky kickboxer who can knock people out and ice them no problem, he couldn't crack the chin of Julian Erosa and then, in fact, got cooked and submitted in the third? No. That's exactly the prototypical type of fighter that apparently gives him trouble, and that's what Charles Jourdain does best. This man is hunting for Valhalla, Wheezy. He wants glory. He wants to get in there and kill people, and he ratchets the intensity up, and that's something I like to bet on. When you've got a fighter who starts a little bit slow, it's always terrifying because they may or may not win the first round, and that can put you behind the ball, especially on decisions if it goes a full 15. But some people, like Jourdain, have a tendency of finishing the fight in the second or the third, and then they go ahead and take that off the table. It's not something you have to
Yeah, you're breaking up, Clint. You're frozen
I like
right now.
That Jourdain has struggled with. Am I back?
You're back. You're back.
All right, I'm back. Where'd I leave off? Where'd I get cut?
Like about 10 seconds ago. Go back about 10, 15 seconds.
Man, the internet's being a bitch tonight. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Technical difficulties. What I was saying was that I'm not impressed with the wrestling of Sean Woodson, and I know that Charles Jourdain has an awful takedown defense, but a lot of that can be attributed to the Nathaniel Wood fight, where he didn't have an answer for the foot sweep, and Nathaniel Wood foot swept him like 17 times in the same fight. So he has, just a massive knock to that takedown defense percentage number on his resume. His last two fights against Kron Gracie and Ricardo Ramos, he looked much improved in the takedown defense area. I don't think Sean is going to be able to take him down as easily as he thinks he will. And then when Charles Jourdain either kicks the shit out of that leg or crashes the pocket and gets into boxing range, I think he's going to be the far better hitter. I think he's going to have no problem dicing up the taller, longer Woodson, and he's going to have a big speed advantage. So I like Charles Jourdain here. That is parlayed up with Gillian Robertson, and I believe that number comes out to plus 116, Wheezy. 2 units on that parlay, and I like it.
Yeah, I like Jourdain here too. Sean Woodson is a really good minute winner at distance striking range, but what there is here is a big time power differential, Clint. And that's going to tell the story of this fight because, I think we all saw it on display in that Julian Erosa fight, right? Woodson wins the first 2 rounds of that fight. He's staying at range. He's just keeping him on his jab. And at some point between the second and the third round, Erosa's coach asked him, when he hits you, does it hurt? And Erosa's like, no. So he goes, then fucking walk through it and finish this fucker. And dude, you go and you watch that third round, and Erosa's like, you know what? You're not going to hurt me. And that's Erosa, a guy who's been knocked out several times. We can look at Sean Woodson's numbers here. 10 professional wins, only 4 finishes. It's not good, I mean, one of his 4 wins in the UFC is a knockout win over Colin Anglin, and he did start showing that he could sit down on his punches in that fight. But Colin Anglin's striking is not comparable to Jourdain's. Another thing I think is very important here, Clint. Charles Jourdain has never been knocked out in his career. This dude is durable. You know he's down for a war, right? So if Jourdain has watched some of that tape, if he realizes, hey, dude, I'm way more durable than this guy. Look at how skinny this dude is. I'm going to walk through what he throws. I'm going to get inside. I'm going to break his ribs, and I'm going to punt his head into the cheap seats here. And then while the Canadian fans put it on a pike, light it on fire, and pass it around the crowd singing, "Oh, Canada." He's going to get that home crowd fired up here. I think this is a pretty good matchup for him. Yeah, Sean might wrestle a little bit. We saw that new wrinkle in his game, but Charles, while he doesn't have good takedown defense, here's some really impressive numbers, right? Charles has attempted 6 takedowns. Charles' opponents have attempted 44 against him, right? Charles has 1 UFC takedown. He's gotten 1. Charles' opponents have 23, right? Charles Jourdain somehow manages with those huge deficits in offensive grappling to defensive grappling in his fights. Charles is the one winning 42% of the control time positions. That's a phenomenal grappling efficiency number. So the numbers don't tell everything all the time. 48% takedown defense. Yeah, that's bad. You know, Charles Jourdain has 16% takedown accuracy. You know, this guy couldn't take down a rake. But he gets back up when he gets taken down, right? So I think that I don't think we're going to see Sean have any success in the grappling. And I think that there's a massive power differential on the feet here. Charles, without question, has fought the better level of competition at the UFC level, and he has the better wins. And he's got more UFC experience as well. So oh, by the way, he's 3.5 years younger too. So I like a lot of the things here in the hometown fighter, Charles Jourdain, that's going to have that crowd going nuts for him here. I think that's a smart line to parlay up. I think this is a good stylistic matchup for Charles. I just worry that he thinks he can sit at range and play a point striking battle with Sean, because if he does that, this fight's going to be very close, and I think Sean could potentially win it and look pretty good if it's a range point fighting kickboxing contest. Because, Sean's got a 9-inch reach advantage. Sean's 5 inches taller. If Charles doesn't fight smart, if he doesn't pressure, if he doesn't close that distance, Sean's going to be able to pick him apart.
Agreed, Wheezy. Absolutely agreed. All right. I am glad that we see that fight pretty dang well, eye to eye. I'm looking forward to that one. That one's going to be a hell of a fun fight. Real quick, everybody, as always, got to shout out the sponsors and pay the bills, so bear with me here just 1 second here. First and foremost, y'all are on Pub Sports Radio. You should have seen this one coming already. PubSportsRadio.com. Check them out. We do offer a free $100 every single week for our MMA contest. Come on here, make a free account, log in, pick your fighter, pick your round, pick your method. Winner every single week gets $100. So if you like free money, come on, check it out. We, of course, run other contests. The NFL ones are all wrapping up and stuff like that now, but there's a lot of other fun stuff on here, like tracking of the local cappers. If you're a Pub Sports Radio member, you get posted up right here. You can see my beautiful face and everything that I've played so far for this card. So if you want to find one fancy place to find it and not dig through, my hashtags and stuff on Twitter or Instagram, that's the easiest way to do it, is right here at Pub Sports Radio. Next up, we've got Spectation Sports. If you like regional scene MMA, these guys are basically taking over. If you thought UFC Fight Pass was good, they're improving upon that, and use promo code DIEHARD for 20% off your subscription. WFC is coming up. Cage Titans is coming back around. MMA is definitely back and roaring. Check out Spectation Sports. You're definitely going to watch your regional shows here and get ready for all that Dana White's Contender Series goodness that we should be having coming right around the corner soon enough. Next up, you've got the Sharp app. They've got the Proptimizer. They've got professional gamblers on staff that have picks. The Discord has over 6,000 members. This place is absolutely popping. Make sure you check out the Sharp app. You can find awesome information there about all the other sports that I don't handle and just simply am not good at. Last but not least, we've got Bet Openly. And I have explained to you guys already how Bet Openly works. You pick any action you want on Bet Openly, and the price tag is going to be better. For example, we're looking at the Eagles game tonight. The -3 on the Philadelphia Eagles, you get plus 108. You're getting a much better number using this platform than you're going to get anywhere else. It is peer-to-peer betting, 1% juice. And we are running the first ever Bet Openly gauntlet. It is a 6-week extravaganza for MMA betting, and it's too late to enter, folks. It is too late to enter. We've already got action humming for the people that are online and went ahead and dove in here and got involved. So we've got winners and losers, and the next one will probably get started after this 6-week game is up. But we're going to be giving away 3 prizes. First place gets $300, second place $200, third place $100, all with a $50 bankroll contest going on here at Bet Openly right now. Make sure you use my link, sign up, check it out. It's going to be something that saves you money long-term, basically. You're going to want to check it out. It's a good platform, especially for moneyline games like MMA. It's really perfect for gamblers like us. All right, everybody. The next fight up that we're going to go ahead and talk to you about is maybe Brad Katona taking on Garrett Armfield. Now, Weezy and I chatted about this one backstage for a little bit because I honestly don't know what's going on here. I thought I saw something online that this fight got pulled. I swear I thought I saw Brad Katona was like injured and pulled or something. So I didn't study this fight because I thought it was off. Lo and behold, we get to podcast time. I pull up Tapology and here it is. It's still listed. And we can't seem to find the thing that I thought I saw that said it was out. So I am unprepared. Now, off the top of the head, I kind of like Brad Katona just as a fighter. He strikes me as a GSP type, Wheezy. Not the level of GSP. I'm not calling him the next GSP. I don't think of him in that kind of light. However, he's one of those guys that will take what you give him. He will find that minuscule crack in your armor and then abuse it if he can take advantage of you there. He's tough. He's durable. He's active. He's a bit of a decision machine, but he also knows how to win. And that's extremely important in MMA, especially when it comes to MMA betting, when we want to put our money on somebody. If you're going to do just what it takes to win, nothing more, nothing less, but you're going to get your hand raised, that's someone I like to have my money on. Now, Garrett Armfield, I'm going to have to really go back and refresh. I know he got absolutely dusted by David Onama. He bounced back well against Kazama, who's another one of those road to the UFC type of guys. So I'm really not sure what to feel about him at this point in time. However, whenever you get the killer be killed guy versus the slow methodical guy, I just automatically kind of lean towards slow and methodical, Wheezy. Hopefully you got some numbers and maybe a breakdown ready to go on this one that can kind of help me out. I would preemptively be leaning over to none other than Katona in this spot, just blindly.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like, it's weird. I mean, Katona's only listed with 15 professional fights, but he's so much more experienced. You know, I mean, like, this guy's average fight time, 14 and a half minutes, while for Armfield, it's 5.5 minutes. So, you know, Katona's got 15 pro fights, Armfield's got 12, and Katona's got 5 fights at the UFC level, and Armfield has 2. But, you know, this guy Katona is just a lot more experienced. He's a great minute winner. He's 9 wins and 2 losses to the decision in his career, while Armfield, 8 of his 9 wins are finishes. They're knockouts, they're submissions. You know, so Katona's more of a minute winner. And if you watch this guy fight, you know, he's very smart. You know, he doesn't take unnecessary risks. You know what you're going to get from Katona. He's going to fight to his opponent's weaknesses. He's going to make smart decisions. He's going to be defensively responsible. And he's going to wrestle. You know, he's definitely going to wrestle, and he's going to try to win some minutes that way. You know, and he's probably going to keep some fights close. Armfield, like I say, only 1 win by decision in his entire career. And I mean, it came a while ago. So, Mark Slider by split decision. So I rate Katona as the better minute winner. I rate Armfield as the better moment winner. Problem with being a moment winner against Brad Katona is this dude's never been finished. You know? And he's got 4 fights on his career that aren't on his resume because they happened in the Tough House. This guy beat Kyler Phillips in the Tough House. This guy submitted Bryce Mitchell in the 3rd round in the Tough House. He beat Timur Valiev in the Tough House, and he has a win over Carlos Vera as well in the Tough House. So that 13-2 record is actually like a 17-2 record. And he's beaten some guys that are some high-level featherweights. You know, I mean, the guys like Bryce Mitchell, let's face it, you know, and then some good bantamweights as well. So, can Armfield finish a smart, defensively sound fighter like Katona, who's never been finished in his entire career? Not by guys like Bryce, not by guys like Tyler Phillips. It's not likely, but Armfield is the younger guy here. He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage. That's very significant. And when you watch Garrett strike, he's dangerous, man. He likes to get into the pocket kind of like Taveras does. He pressures. He works his way inside. He's got a pretty good chin. He's never been knocked out himself, and he throws heavy hands. So I think that Armfield is going to have to keep this fight standing. But when you watch the losses in Armfield's career, he's getting taken down and he's getting dominated by guys. And that's exactly how Brad Katona wins minutes. I mean, this guy's fighting Gamzat Magomedov and Bayer Stepan. You know, these are, you know, Central Asian, you know, animals, you know, and he's out wrestling these guys. And he's done it at a very high level as well. So I think on paper, there's a lot of reasons to like Katona here. And Katona has only finished 4 of his 13 professional wins. So I think it's, you know, interesting to look and see what the difference is between the submission prop, or I mean, between the decision prop and the money line. Yeah, and Katona's minus 178, but he's plus 115 on the decision prop. I think that's a pretty good way to look at this. And I think the over 2.5 at minus 172 probably hits here. Katona, not much of a finisher, and he's never been finished. And Armfield depends on the finish to win. So I think Brad Katona by decision, probably the best way to play this one.
I think
with those
had their
okay.
We looking toward again.
Damn it, you're breaking up again, dude.
Chat, let me know if you can hear me. I don't know if it's me or if it's Wheezy buffering.
No, it's you, dude.
Wheezy, you're back. I can see you, but can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, it's me. I do apologize, guys. It's Martin Luther King Day. Happy Martin Luther King Day, by the way, everybody. But you know what that means is everybody and their mother is home right now watching football. So I'm sure my my local area internet connection is just dying trying to keep up with everybody, and of course my live stream. I pay for the expensive shit too. So this is some shenanigans, Wheezy. I should be able to stream no problem with how much these thieves take from me on a monthly basis, so I can do this shit for you people. All right, but I do agree with you. I think Katona by decision, probably the way that it goes, just because that's what we've seen historically speaking. I will dig into that one a little bit later on in this week and come back to you guys with a little bit better of a full-on opinion there on that one. In the meantime, I can chat with you about a fight I know a little bit more about. Arnold Allen takes on Movsar Evloev, and I love this fight, Wheezy. I absolutely love this fight. This is a high-skilled fight with big stakes in the division. We've got a potential for one of these guys to slide right into contendership with a win here in this fight. You know, we recently had Arnold Allen reach for the stars and get bitch slapped back down the ladder by the #1 gatekeeper in the world in Max Holloway. I don't care who you are. I love Max Holloway. And if it wasn't for the name of Alexander Volkanovski, that man would still be champion of this weight class. I call him a gatekeeper with the kindness, every respect humanly possible, because if you can't get by Max Holloway, you're not winning in this weight class to get that belt. It's just not going to happen because there's only one guy on the planet who's better than he is. So there's really no shame in Arnold Allen having lost to Max Holloway. However, it was almost a little bit one-sided. He had a couple big moments in that fight. He cracked Max a couple of times. It wasn't quite as disrespectful as Max, you know, teaching him how to box. But it was pretty rough at times, Wheezy. It didn't really seem like Max had much to worry about in that spot. Arnold Allen is a brutal power puncher. He's got fast hands. He's got great boxing. He trains at TriStar. He's Canada's own. He's the hometown boy. He's supposed to be probably the guy getting the spotlight here in this spot. But you all know exactly how I feel about Movsar Evloev. I think this kid is an absolute stud. Weezy, I don't know how much better it gets grappling than Movsar Evloev, and I do not think that it is physically possible to submit this man. You know, we saw him in some of the deepest shit we have ever seen an MMA fighter before, and he just refuses to tap. His face is stone cold. No grimace, no gritting his teeth to get through it, nothing. He just keeps chilling out and does his thing until you finally wiggle or move or let go. And then he's good to go. And he continues beating on your face. And now we thought of him as like a grappler's only type of grappler. And in his last couple fights, he has really shown off some nice, clean boxing.
Yeah.
He's very slick on the feet, rolls well. He's got a beautiful, educated jab. And that's the kind of striking where you're not going to hurt anybody, but you absolutely can like mitigate the damage coming back against a superior striker. You can avoid the power of somebody who might be able to knock you out. And more so than other people that just wing that overhand right, he will be able to set up his attacks far cleaner than a lot of these other fighters are going to be able to, who just wing one bomb and then pray they can get in on your legs. No, he actually will like walk you into a takedown and then transition and flow on you once it gets to the mat. This is a beautiful fight. And I think it comes down to one thing, Weezy, and that's, can that 76% takedown defense rating of Arnold Allen hold up? You got to go back a ways, Weezy. You got to go back. But this guy fought Mads Burnell back in 2018, and he gave up 6 takedowns in that fight. 6 of 12. That's a 50% hit rate. Now, he ends up scooping the neck of Mads Burnell and choking him out in, guess what? Round 3. That's just the MO for Mads Burnell, having, you know, tired out and getting submitted deep in the fight. That's kind of what he does. So yes, Arnold Allen, a young rising prospect, found a way to win, but the fact he was getting taken down that easy peasy is concerning. Now, obviously, 6 years later, he's had a lot of time to work on it. But how many people have really looked to shoot on him since then, Weezy? He got 2 takedowns on Sadiq Youssef, and that was a couple of years ago. He fought Dan Hooker, Calvin Kattar. He fought Max Holloway, guys that simply do not grapple. So we really haven't seen the wrestling or takedown defense since the Nick Lentz fight. And as much as I love Nick Lentz, he's old and busted. He's a relic at this point in the game. So I don't put too much stock into that. And I think Movsar is a much cleaner grappler than he is anyway. Younger, stronger, more physical. I can't wait for this fight, Weezy. Even though Evloev is the guy who naturally is, he was fighting at the lower weight class before moving up and kind of joining the ranks of this one here. He has a 2-inch reach advantage. He's going to be longer than his opponent here in this spot. 1 inch shorter, but he's got that gorilla arms thing going on. And that reach advantage is something that will come in handy, especially when we talk about the jab, like I mentioned earlier. I like Movsar Evloev to win this fight, Weezy. And I also have the Movsar Evloev to be champion of this weight class ticket in my pocket. I got 20-1 on Movsar to win because I think he gets by Arnold Allen. And if we see the changing of the guard where Ilia Topuria takes out the current king, I think because of the bad blood in the history between Topuria and Evloev, that's a shoe-in for the next fight. I think he's got such a clear, direct path to the title right now. There is no number 1 contender. And if Ilia takes the title, I don't think they're going to rush Max Holloway back in there immediately. They could, they might, but I think that Evloev is on the short list of opponents. So I loved that 20-1 sprinkle because it basically just comes down to him beating Topuria. Tall task, but obviously very hedgeable at 20-1. What do you make of this fight, Weezy? I like the short favorite Evloev to go ahead and get the win here.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. Look, the thing about Allen is that he's a great all-around fighter. You know, the striking is really good. He's long for the division. He's got power. He's got really good boxing. He's got solid takedown defense, a good get-up game, good cardio. And the guy just finds ways to win fights, even like you mentioned in the Mads Burnell fight. He's losing that fight. He's down 20-18 after 2 rounds, and he's losing the 3rd round, and he finds that guillotine. You know, and it's because there's not a lot of quitting this dude. You see that in the 5th round of the Max Holloway fight, where his coach is like, all right, Arnold, you got to knock this guy out. And he goes, all right, I got to knock him out. And you saw him go out there in the 5th round, listening to his coaches, knowing that it was knockout or bust. And he fought in a manner that would make your coach proud. You know, if your coach says, hey, son, you got to knock him out this round. Arnold he tried to do exactly that. And it's an impossible task. You know, you couldn't knock out Max Holloway with a shovel, you know? So, I mean, you know, but he did his damnedest and he had a really good round and he won that round. So, Allen's, you know, damn good. But the problem is you got Movsar Evloev, 17 professional fights. The guy's never been finished. Okay. Arnold Allen, 21 professional fights, 11 of them at the UFC level. Dude's never been finished. So when I tell you that, it tells you this fight comes down to minute winning, doesn't it? Okay? Movsar Evloev is the better minute winner on the feet. Even Sadiq Youssef won the minutes of the Arnold Allen fight, but Arnold sparked him twice. Once in the first, and I forget whether it was the second or the third, but he sparked him twice, and that's why he won that fight 29-28, but it was a very close fight. Arnold really needed the big shot in order to get those rounds where he was losing the minutes and wind up banking those rounds because of the moments that he won in each of those rounds. But Evloev is a guy who is such a good grinder. 50% takedown accuracy. He's 33 of 65, 4.71 takedowns per 15 minutes, 9.29 takedown attempts per 15 minutes. That's 5.1 more than the divisional average. He outcontrols his opponents 41% to 5.5%, winning 88% of the control time positions. And like you mentioned, when this dude's at range, he's outstriking his opponents by 1.87 distance strikes per minute. He's got a positive 1.87 distance striking differential, above average 42% accuracy, far above average 65% defense, and he outvolumes his opponents, throwing about 2.25 more distance strikes per minute. So he stays busy, and his boxing's more difficult to deal with than it should be because of the threat of the wrestling that comes behind the boxing. You'll see guys that would never knock anybody down in a boxing match, knock them down in an MMA match because they have that wrestling and their opponent can't really plant their feet. Their opponent really has to be moving laterally a lot to not allow those angles for these guys to get in on your hips. And if Movsar gets in on your hips, you're going for a ride. You're going to get held down for a while. Now, he doesn't have the greatest hold down game. You know, guys get back up. You know, when you're averaging 4.71 takedowns per 15 minutes, it means people are getting back up when you're taking them down. If people never got back after you take them down, you wouldn't be able to get more than one takedown per round. You know, so I think Evloev can win minutes on the feet. I think it's going to be close on the feet. But Arnold Allen has fought a lot of grapplers, and you have to go back a ways to see it. But Makwan Amirkhani, Alan Omer, Mats Burnell, Nick Lentz, all these guys are having success and winning rounds against this guy with the grappling. And why should it be any different with Movsar Evloev? But, you know, Allen's a great prospect. He could find ways to win moments in 2 of the 3 rounds of this fight and have a similar outcome that he had in the Sadiq Youssef fight. So I favor Evloev. I think he wins this fight by decision. I think the over 2.5, even up to like minus 350, Clint, it's a fantastic parlay piece this week. Can you imagine either of these guys getting finished? It would be a shock if Evloev or Allen was lifeless on the canvas, especially Allen, right? Because I don't think Evloev like finishes the banana that he has in the morning. I think he eats like half of it and he's like, I'm going to put the other half in the refrigerator. I'll finish this later. This banana is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, no, man, I'm right there with you. And I think that I saw this last week, called it, and then didn't play it, right? We had a free square on an over 2.5 in the Farid Basharat fight last week, and then I didn't touch it.
Right.
And that's kind of what we have in this spot as well. I completely agree with you. The durability of Allen is something incredible. And you could say the same thing for Evloev. Allen does have that soul-piercing power in his hands, but in a 15-minute fight, I'm not sure he'll be able to find the button against a guy that's as durable as Evloev. And on top of that, I don't think he's going to be able to get Evloev off of him in this fight, so he's going to have a hard time landing that power. Believe it or not, the best way I see this fight finishing would be an Evloev sub, and I just don't think it's likely. You know what I mean? Like if I had to pick, hey, how does this fight actually finish? It'd have to be an Evloev sub. But I'm not even touching the 11-1 on that because these two guys are just too good, too tough. I don't see it. I think we're headed to the judges' scorecards on this one as well, Wheezy. And even though it's a little bit chalky, minus 360, that's probably a leg you could throw into a parlay this week if you really wanted to and not sweat the winner out. But I'm with you. Evloev by decision. What's up, Big Show? Thanks for swinging by. Congrats to you and your Lions, man. Nice greasy little win that you got there over the Rams. You guys deserve it. Haven't had a win in long enough. I'm happy for you, bud. So congratulations on that. And Curtis saying that the plus money on Allen is tempting. I get it, man. I absolutely get it. And honestly, it feels like a trap to me. I could throw my tinfoil hat on for you for this one because I absolutely feel like that seems like a trap. Allen is one of these guys who is so popular, who's so hyped. A lot of people expect him to be a contender. And when they give you this kind of number on him, that looks very attractive immediately to everybody. And because of that, I don't trust it. I think Evloev is the rightful favorite in this spot, and I think the bookies know that, and they're dangling this kind of a number out there to entice the action on that side. No confirmed or anything like that. I can't. I haven't talked to my guy over at Superbook just yet, so I can't say if that's true or not. But that's just kind of how I see this number for most people. It's going to immediately be juicy for pretty much everybody. All right, folks, we got about 4 more fights to break down. If you haven't already, please do me a favor, hit the like button. If you want to come hang out with us and chat here, consider becoming a member at Pub Sports Radio. Mushroom asking, are you hating on the Eagles tonight? Oh, so okay, Steelers game is over. They lost. I donated on the money line. However, the bigger bet that covered all the money line sprinkles was on the plus 19.5 live spread. So thank God I break even on that and walk away without getting too hurt or anything like that. I am not hating on your Eagles, Mushroom. I think Tampa Bay is so busted up at this point that I think they're going to have a hard time competing in this game. As much as I have shit on the Eagles and Philly in general, I don't think I can continue to do so tonight. They're bad. The defense is bad. I do think that it's going to be a bit more of a shootout than you guys would like. It's not going to be dominant, one way or the other. It probably comes down to like a bit of a nail biter. So I'm not playing the spread on this one, but I think I'm going to go ahead and pick the Eagles. He's asking, am I okay? Yeah, that's not normal for me to be supporting Philly over here. So I'm playing props, man. I'm playing props. That's about it. Next up, you got Chris Curtis taking on Marc-André Barriault, MAB, Team Canada on that side of the equation. Chris Curtis, the best friend and training partner to current champion Sean Strickland, who fights in the main event of this fight card. Beautiful storylines. Good work by the UFC setting this one up. I love this fight. You guys know I'm a massive fan of Chris Curtis. Love his style. He's one of those builder type fighters that we talk about that starts a little slow, finds his opponent's pace and timing, and then ratchets it up as the fight gets deeper, and then usually ends up cracking him in the second or the third round, ends up putting his opponents down for good once he finds that timing, that range, that distance. Slicker strikers cause him a bit of a problem. Those guys that he can't quite figure out. He is a smaller guy at 185. So yes, he's got power. He loves those rib roasters, but every once in a while you get those tall, lanky bastards, and he just can't find his way in. He can't do enough damage. He can't find the pattern to get in there and do what he needs to do to go ahead and get the win. But that's not what he's got here. He's taking on Marc-André Barriault, who's mostly just a cardio bully in this weight class, man. If you've seen one MAB fight, you've seen every MAB fight, Wheezy. He fights the exact same way every single time. Foot on the gas, steps in front of his opponents, boxing heavy attack, and he bullies you with these constant takedown attempts right behind the punches, makes you work, tires you out, and just exhausts you. Now, a lot of times, he also can break people deeper in the fight because they just cannot keep up with his cardio or his pace. But in this fight, he's dealing with my boy Chris Curtis, who up until just recently had a shiny, beautiful 100% takedown defense rating. That is something that you can't fake. That is something that you can't make up. It's damn near impossible to get Chris Curtis down to the ground. 92% takedown defense. Now, Nasruddin Imavov found the secret sauce. He got him down 3 times. We ended up in a weird no contest situation there. Back-to-back weird things for Chris Curtis. You know, that head clash against Kelvin Gastelum, which arguably cost him that fight. And then the no contest with Imavov. Everybody just hates my guy. And I think that's why we got a bit of a discount on his number, Wheezy. I made a big boy bet on this one here. Minus 166. I laid 4.98 units, just shy of that 5-unit mark to win 3 on my guy, Chris Curtis. Love this spot for him. I am laying the chalk here because we have seen you can break Marc-André Barriault. He's usually the hammer, but he's been the nail several times as well. He lost a decision to Jung Young Park, who's another guy who's got great pace and cardio. He got cracked by Chidi Njokuani. He got tapped out by Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. So, like, for the guy who usually bullies people with cardio, some of these other cardio monsters have no problem pushing right back. And I think the body work from Chris Curtis is going to be a big part of that. It's going to be draining. It's going to hurt him. And then when he usually has that next gear in round 3, it's not going to be there. His lungs are going to hurt when he tries to breathe in. His ribs are going to hurt every time he throws a punch. And then I don't think he's going to be able to get the grappling going. On top of that, Wheezy, there's just a skill differential here when it comes to the strength of competition. I mentioned the losses, right? Jung Young Park, Chidi, Fluffy. These are guys that are middle of the road. These are guys that have big upside, but have also been taken advantage of in the UFC and have been beaten by some people very recently. These are not world beaters. These are not title contenders. Those are the guys that are beating him. Who's he beating? Dalcha Lungiambula, fraud. Abu Azaitar, fraud. Jordan Wright, fraud. Julian Marquez, fraud. Eric Anders. I love Eric Anders. I'm not going to call him a fraud, but he's tough as nails, and that's his best attribute. He's not exceptional anywhere. He's just bigger and stronger than most of the people that he fights. Chris Curtis has been fighting Nasruddin Imavov, Kelvin Gastelum, Joaquin Buckley, Jack Hermanson, Rodolfo Vieira, Brendan Allen. I mean, he's been in the contender circle for his last 5 or 6 fights. He's fighting the best this weight class has to offer. And even though he cracked Joaquin Buckley and that looked like, that might not be a very good win, Buckley's done nothing but win since that fight, Wheezy. Like, even the ones that are questionable have looked pretty good in hindsight. So look at Brendan Allen. That guy might be challenging for a title pretty soon. And Chris Curtis put him down with a quickness. So I think there's a big levels gap here. I think everything that Marc-André Barriault does, Chris Curtis does just a little better. He's going to have more power. He'll match the cardio. He'll counter the wrestling. Chris Curtis for the win, baby. Give me a round 2, round 3 TKO.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty simple fight to break down because Chris Curtis has attempted 0 takedowns in the UFC, right? Marc-André Barriault has only attempted 8 takedowns in 11 UFC fights, and he's only gotten 2 of them, right? And then if you think, well, Barriault, maybe he wrestles, well, Chris Curtis has stuffed 36 of 39 takedown attempts. So why would he wrestle? What would be the point of that? So this is easy. This is a distance striking battle. Whoever wins the minutes and the moments at range is going to win this fight. And minute winning, Chris Curtis isn't great. He really isn't. He starts slow. He's kind of low volume. He throws less volume than his opponents. His distance striking defense isn't great either. It's only 53%. But what he does so well is work his way into the fight, find places to counter, stay in that pocket. And he's very durable, which is huge. He's very accurate, and he has that knack of finding the fight-ending shot. I mean, Chris Curtis is landing a knockdown on almost 1% of the distance strikes that he lands. He's got 3 UFC knockdowns, and he's got 3 UFC knockouts, and that's in 4 UFC wins. So Chris isn't really out there, winning the minutes. Like, he won the minutes against Rodolfo Vieira, but who cares? Rodolfo Vieira could strike his way out of a paper bag. Rodolfo Vieira is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So, and he beat the hell out of him, man. I mean, Rodolfo probably didn't shit right for like a week because he ate about 50 rib roasters in that fight, and his poor intestines got pulverized. I don't know how he made it through that. That really should have been all 4 finishes for Chris Curtis, but that's what Curtis is. He'll win minutes against guys like Rodolfo, but against a guy like Barriault, who's going to be matching your volume, who's going to be pressuring, I think that Mark will be a pretty good opponent for him at distance striking range, and that's where this fight is going to take place. But it's just a matter of time before Chris gets in that pocket and finds the big shot. And Barriault's a pretty durable guy, but we saw him get absolutely slept by Chidi Njokuani. And I didn't even know that was a possibility until it happened. But Chris is the kind of guy who, he doesn't have that Njokuani power, but it's the precision. It's the counter striking. It's the technical downloading of the information, the timing, the trap setting, the feints. It all works together. And eventually he finds that shot. So even if he loses the moments here, I could see this being a situation where he just lands the bigger shots in the rounds, wins a decision if he doesn't finish this fight. But I think the most likely path is Chris Curtis finds a knockout at some point in this fight. I don't think Mark's going to wrestle. I don't even think he should bother because I don't think he's going to get anywhere with it. I don't think he'll win minutes with it. So I really do believe that this is going to come down to who's the sharper, more accurate, and powerful boxer. And I think that's Chris Curtis.
Okay. We agree once again here on this one, Wheezy. Sorry, everybody. It's a little boring sometimes when we're on the same page. But Wheezy did a good job of kind of playing the path to victory for Marc-André Barriault there for you guys. He's not a dead fish in the water, nothing like that. But from what I saw, they did an interview with him, and I guess he's also been struggling with like a lot of injuries and stuff like that, and accumulation of damage. And the way he fights, that just makes a ton of sense. I think that's something that he could be prematurely aging here because of his MMA career and the style with which he chooses to fight. Chris Curtis, on the other hand, does a lot of damage mitigation. He's actually very good at shit, like Sean Strickland is, and doesn't let those damaging punches get to him as often as sometimes it seems like they are. So definitely love this one. My guy Curtis in the chat saying, not boring at all. Y'all my favorite cappers. Love to hear that. Thank you for the kind words, Curtis. We appreciate you for being here. The next fight on the docket here, Wheezy, is Neil Magny, and he takes on none other than Canada's own Mike Malott. He's this high up because he is carrying Canada's flag. He appears to be Canada's favorite son at this stage, Wheezy. Mike Malott, I've talked about this guy a lot, and I really like the upside of Mike Malott. However, I am not 1000% sold on him either. The UFC 273 fight with Mickey Gall was a little concerning to me. He was very hittable in that spot. And he, as much as, I like Mickey Gall, he's not somebody who should be getting off on you in the boxing realm. We've seen Mike Malott also take some damaging shots, wobble. He's been knocked out once, and I harp on him every single time for it, Wheezy, maybe a little unfairly, but this man got knocked out by Amin Hakeem Dawodu. Hakeem doesn't knock UFC caliber opponents out. Simply does not. He doesn't have that kind of power. He's got a great, mean, nasty name, and people think he hits hard, but he really doesn't, and he doesn't take anybody out at this level. He knocked out Mike Malott. Granted, it was when they were both young. It was early on in their career, so I get it. You can maybe give a bit of an excuse for him there, but I'm not going to. If you're getting boxed up by Mickey Gall and you got knocked out by Mean Hakeem, you're a guy who I'm never going to truly trust on the feet. Now, good thing for Mike Malott, he's a very talented grappler. So even though he doesn't have the best chin in the world, this guy's got an excellent submission game. He's got 6 wins by sub on his record, and this is just clear as day what the UFC is trying to do, Wheezy. Neil Magny is an absolute staple of the organization at this point in time. Elevation Fight Team. He makes you fight his pace. He's a guy that I went to time and time again. He went on a decent little run where we zigzag. He's been alternating wins and losses, Wheezy, for like the last 4 or 5 years now. Look at this. Robbie Lawler, Michael Chiesa, Jeff Neal lost a grappling match to Silva, Max Griffin, Shavkat, Daniel Rodriguez, Gilbert Burns, Phil Rowe, Machado Gary. L win. Like, it's seriously been going on for 5 straight years with this guy. He's coming off a loss. Do with that what you will, but it's very apparent that the UFC feeds this man to people who can grapple. The UFC want people to take this guy down and tap him out. Gilbert Burns, arm triangle choke, round 1. Shavkat Rakhmonov, guillotine choke, round 2. Joaquim Silva, grappling match, not a UFC fight, guillotine choke, round 1. Michael Chiesa, decision loss. I mean, that's all that is about this guy at this point in time. Now, he did tap out Daniel Rodriguez. That was a fun little spot. He did win a split decision over Phil Rowe, who was supposed to be a guy that could out-grapple him, and Ian Gary simply chose not to grapple, but very easily could have as well. Mike Malott's fallback plan is the grappling, and he's very aggressive with his submissions. If he gets on top of this man, I don't think that he will do what Ian Garry did, and that's play with his food, Wheezy. I fully expect Mike Malott to take down and finish Neil Magny. Now, I do want to go ahead and argue for the other side here just a little bit, because Neil Magny has made me a lot of money in the past, and this is a spot where, frankly, he may be a little bit disrespected. He's got great cardio, he's got great pace, and if you're not able to take him down, he will beat the brakes off of you for 15 straight minutes and wear you out. Mike Malott is not durable, Wheezy. I mentioned that. If there was ever going to be somebody that Neil Magny could clip and put down, it would be someone like proper Mike Malott over here. So I will be watching this fight extremely closely, because if Malott tries and fails to get a takedown, I think he will panic on the feet, and a Neil Magny live bet is very much on the table in this kind of a spot. Plus 290, a little disrespectful. Obviously, an extremely clear path to victory for Mike Malott, but I do not think that Mike Malott is the same caliber of prospect as an Ian Machado Garry. What do you make of this one here?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think this is like Sean Shelby made the call to Jasudavicius' manager and said, "Who do you want? We're trying to get you a win." They came back. They said Cachoeira, and he hung up that phone. And he's like, "All right, get Malott on the phone. Find out who he wants in the top 15." And the manager just takes the call and goes, "We want Magny," and hangs up, because that's the name that's on your tongue. If there's one name in the top 15 that you're calling out, if you're Mike Malott, it's the guy that's got 5 losses by submission at the UFC level, right? I mean, it's got to be that guy. Neil Magny, while he's got some phenomenal qualities as a mixed martial artist, was that? Oh, anyway,
I said easy peasy. It's an easy call out. If you need that ranking, that number next to your name, that's who you're calling.
Yeah. So, I think that's the direction that they're going here. They obviously want to get Mike a win in front of that Canadian home crowd, and they're going to give him a guy that he can out-grapple, But you got to be careful. The last 5 opponents for Mike Malott are Solomon Renfro, Shimon Smot-Risky, Mickey Gall, Yohan Lainesse, and Adam Fugit. Last 5 fights for Neil Magny: Shavkat Rakhmonov, Daniel Rodriguez, Gilbert Burns, Philip Rowe, and Ian Garry. 3 of those 5 names are guys who have either fought for a championship, will be a future champion, or will fight for a championship in the division, right? So Neil Magny is a guy who has 31 UFC fights since the year 2013. Mike Malott has 12 fights in 13 years as a professional. There's years where Neil Magny has fought more minutes than Mike Malott has fought in his entire professional career. Mike Malott's been a mixed martial artist for almost 3 years. You know how many minutes of professional experience he has? Take a guess. 12 fights, 13 years.
Oh, my goodness. It's going to be a big number. I mean, it's got to be like 800 minutes or something like that.
Oh, no, I'm talking about Malott, because Neil Magny
is Malott. Okay.
Yeah, 392 minutes of just UFC cage time since 2013. Mike Malott's professional career is like the length of a Law and Order episode. It's 40 minutes and 47, 40 minutes, 40.47 minutes. So, I mean, like I say, there have been 3-month stretches of Neil Magny's career where he's fought more minutes as a professional than Mike Malott has fought in 13 years. So we've got to admit that while Malott is a great favorite, that this is a great matchup for him, that he's probably going to go out there and submit Neil Magny, we have to mention, if we're being responsible grapplers, A, that this is a massive step up in competition for him. B, that Neil Magny has fought way, way, way better competition. And this guy's got 21 UFC wins. So don't play with this guy. He's a stud, And not only that, Magny has just been doing this for, and been so active. And a guy like Malott has not. We know what Neil Magny looks like in round 2. We know what Neil Magny looks like in 3, 4, and 5. The one time we saw Mike Malott get out of the first round as a professional, with the exception of the he got a second round finish. I think it was against Fugit. But either way, This guy gets out of the first round. He's never done anything in his career. He's only lost or went to a draw with a 5-5 fighter. So we have to admit that there are some things we still need to learn about Mike Malott. Is he durable? Does he have a full 3-round gas tank to fight at this level? What happens when he fights a guy who's had more UFC fights since 2013 than some people have had hot meals? You know, this is just another Saturday for Neil Magny. You know, Mike Malott shows up to fight about once a year. You know, this guy Magny fights about 4 or 5 times a year. So, you know, there are some things, but stylistically, kind of feels like Mike Malott by first round submission, doesn't it?
Absolutely, Wheezy. This is one of those ones where I could go into the nuances of this. I could talk all day about this fight, and then it's probably just Mike Malott first round sub.
Yeah.
It seems like the most obvious answer is probably the right one here. But like I said, guys, I'm going to have my trigger finger primed and ready over my mouse to click on the live bet for none other than Neil Magny. Because if Mike Malott fails on even just one takedown, and it looks like Neil Magny is going to kind of get going with his game plan in this spot, I will absolutely take that shot. Adam Fugit, as much as I love Adam Fugit, he's a junkyard dog, not somebody who I write home about with his takedown defense. Yohan Lainesse, we already talked about my opinion of Yohan Lainesse. Mickey Gall, he was a fun story for the UFC who never panned out, never got any better than a Dana White's Contender Series level fighter. He got handled appropriately. This guy has never been even close to tested. Imagine jumping from Adam Fugit to my guy, Neil Magny. Like, that is an incredible leap in competition level, Wheezy, and I'm not sure the kid is capable of pulling it off. Like I said, I've seen the signs of him being chinny, so don't be shocked, folks. This is the PSA. This is the warning fight of the night. If you anchor all your parlays on Mike Malott, for the love of God, hedge just a little bit, because this one could sink all the boats on Saturday. Co-main event time. Raquel Pennington takes on Mayra Bueno Silva. And Wheezy, when you're as big a fan as we are of this sport, when you build a nice portfolio of my guys and my girls, eventually they're going to fight each other. And that's what's been happening to me a lot lately. These fight matchups recently have been painful. Did you know that they're matching up my guy C-Rod against Isaac Dilgarian? Son of a bitch. Like, 2 of the guys that I've got circled as money makers for me head to head right away. I'm like, damn it, man. Here we are. We've got my girl Rocky, who I want nothing more than to have a Michael Bisping story and get gold wrapped around her waist at the end of her career, taking on Mayra Bueno Silva, the fighter who I have chosen to be the next champion of this weight class. I have a 4-1 ticket in my pocket for her to be the title holder at the end of 2024. Someone who I've been betting on religiously her last couple of events and making money hand over fist because she's just gotten so damn good. And now that USADA's out of the picture, I'm sure she's going to be juiced up on all the horse tranquilizers that allow her to fix the cardio concerns she had earlier on in her career. I love both these women, Wheezy. It's going to be painful for me to watch this. El Pennington, boxing, underrated submission grappling, tough as nails. I don't care. You could come up with any way to phrase tougher than a $2 steak, and it's not going to be enough for how tough Raquel Pennington is. She will take everything that you've got to offer, say thank you, and then come back and punch you in the mouth. I love this girl. I love the way she fights, and I would love her to have a high point at the end of her career. But at the end of the day, there are no happy endings in MMA, Wheezy. I've said it time and time again. This is not a business where things get better the older you get. And I think Mayra Bueno Silva is the new age. She's the next generation. She is nasty and physical on the feet. She hurts people with her power strikes, nice strong kicks, heavy hands, and then she just needs 1 second on the mat. One split second on the mat, and she will tie you into a knot. Now, I know Raquel Pennington has made a career of not getting finished, but we also have seen her bludgeoned and battered. She's been knocked out once. She's been submitted once, and those were all some time ago. But I think if anyone's ever going to do it again, it would be someone like Mayra Bueno Silva. Her last fight, I called the upset over Holly Holm. It was a pick that not many people were very excited about or impressed with until she got into the cage and beat the brakes off of Holly Holm, somebody who very, very much has the same style as Raquel Pennington of grind, grapple, and grind, and she's a bit of a cardio and strength bully. The fact that Bueno Silva was able to handle that with Holly Holm, I know at this stage of the game she might be a little old, a little shop-worn, maybe Pennington's a little sharper than that. I still think that it's a close enough comparison between the two that her beating Holly lets me get some confidence here that she can do the same thing to Raquel Pennington. I like Mayra Bueno Silva. I would like to say sub, just because I think the club and sub is definitely available. I think Rocky mixing in the takedowns, she might leave her neck out there for one of those high elbow guillotines or the Ezekiel choke. I do like Mayra Bueno Silva to get the win here.
Yeah, I absolutely do too. You know, she's just too dangerous, man. She's absolutely too dangerous. She could get the shit beaten out of her 4.5 rounds. Rocky sticks her neck in a guillotine and it's over. One mistake in this girl's guard and you're done. And it's not just you're tapping. It might be your arms broken completely in half. Her armbar is vicious. Mayra Bueno Silva's finished 8 of her 10 professional wins. She's a moment winner. She's not really a minute winner, and that's fine. You don't have to be. You don't have to be a minute winner in this sport. If you're as aggressive as Mayra Bueno Silva and if you're as dangerous as she is from top or bottom position, but what's scary is that she's even more dangerous from bottom position than she is from top position, which means that pressure that she brings, you know, it gets her into the clinch and it gets her opponent sometimes wanting to panic wrestle because they're not used to, most ladies are not used to super aggressive strikers. You don't see it as much in the women's divisions as you do in the men's divisions. You see a lot more wrestling. You see a lot more finesse from the women than you do just like Priscila Cachoeira types that are going out there just marching you down and trying to kill you. They're pretty few and far between. And Mayra Bueno Silva fits that mold. But it's just scary, dude. I remember I had bet a big bet on the over 2.5 rounds for Landsberg versus Bueno Silva. And here was my rationale. Is that Mayra Bueno Silva hadn't even gotten a takedown yet in the UFC. So I kind of figure like Lena Landsberg's not getting knocked out by anybody. So why not just bet that she's going to last because Lena Landsberg's not going to try to take this girl down. So what happens? Mayra Bueno Silva actually starts going for takedowns in this fight. She gets them. She wins a bunch of minutes on top, but she's not a top finisher. She's a bottom finisher. So what happens? About 15 seconds left in the round, Landsberg gets up. And Mayra Bueno Silva's on her back and does this. You know, the old come on into the guard. And I've got the over 2.5 rounds, and I go, Lena, no! I remember I yelled it. I was live on Pub Sports Radio watching. I go, Lena, no! And he went into the guard. That knee bar was wrapped up. It was over in 5 seconds. Lena Landsberg had never been submitted in her professional career. She made one mistake. She went into her guard with 10 seconds left in a round, and it was over like that, like a Paul Craig triangle choke. It was just over. So Raquel Pennington's going to have to fight a perfect fight here. And she could. She's very durable. Like you said, that's the archetype of fighter that you want because if they can stay in that fight, it's not like Mayra's making all these great decisions and going out there and winning minutes. She's 2-1 to the decision in her career. Rocky Pennington's 10-6. She's 9-4 in the UFC to decisions. So, you know, she's a lot better at minute winning here. But Mayra Bueno Silva is just too deadly. I just think that her ability to be able to finish fights, her style suits her strengths really well. And Raquel spends far too much time in control time positions for me to be confident that she's going to survive 25 minutes with Mayra Bueno Silva. You're talking about a massive sample size of 240 minutes of cage time for Pennington at the UFC level. She's spending 47% of her fights in control time positions. That means that Mayra Bueno Silva, even if she can't get the takedown, she'll pull guard. She doesn't care. She'd rather be on her back. Sure. So at some point, I think MBS gets the sub here, and I'll be betting it.
I like it. I like it. And Curtis in the chat says Rocky is not shooting on MBS if she's smart.
Nope.
And I 1000% agree with you. And she is very smart. The difference is these fighters go on autopilot as soon as they get cracked, man. It's not about, hey, avoid the sub. That's the game plan. Back her up with your hands, pin her up against the fence, work the body. That's absolutely going to be the plan here for Raquel Pennington. However, Holly Holm just tried to do that too, and she put her head down for a half second, and it ended up in a choke. It's not even about shooting a takedown. It's just being in a bad position one time against this girl up against the fence. And if you've taken a ton of teep kicks to the body and you feel like you're going to fold over, you grab the leg. It's just a natural reaction. It's a thing that happens. There will be opportunities for her to grab a neck at some point here in this fight. And like Weezy said, even if she decides to get fancy and jump guard herself to get this thing to the ground, she can roll for an ankle. This is the kind of explosive submission finisher that it's like having Francis Ngannou in there. At any point in time, she can grab something and this thing can be over. So I think that justifies her as being the favorite. Like I said, Weezy, at this point, I only have that future set up. I don't have an actual money line play on this one. I am considering adding Mayra Bueno Silva here as a play. It looks like the number is coming down just a little bit. She is minus 166, so there are people out there who are betting Rocky. I've got the 4-1 champ bet, which obviously is pretty contingent on her winning this fight unless we get some goofy shit at the end of the year, like a vacated title or a last second replacement or something like that. So she needs to win this fight for me already. So I'm trying to decide if I want to go ahead and double down. Lower this number gets, the more enticed I am to go ahead and put a money line ticket on Mayra Bueno Silva on Saturday. All right, everybody, it is main event time. I am joined by none other than everybody's favorite Uncle Weezy on Twitter. Give him a follow. Check him out. Wonderful information from our guy Weezy, and he does a show every single week with Brady DFS by the Numbers right here on Pub Sports Radio. Support our guy and hit the like button for me here. We've got Sean Strickland taking on Dricus du Plessis, Weezy, and I'm a little sad, man. I know I should be hyped. I should be ready to go. This is such a fun matchup. These guys have some bad blood, but I'm upset, Weezy, because the amount of money that I should have made and should just have stashed away in a bank account somewhere over in the Swiss Alps is unreal, because I would have mortgaged my home on Dricus to beat Israel Adesanya. We saw the wear and tear. We saw the signs of cracking. I feel like he's just, paper, rock, scissors in MMA. Not all style of matchups are ones that you can overcome. And I feel like Dricus is worst case scenario for Izzy. And we would have gotten like a plus 300 number on him that night, Weezy. And I simply did not ever give Sean Strickland his due. When they had him fill in on that spot, I just went, Izzy wins. Like, I didn't even think about it. There was a bad move on my part for never even considering that Sean Strickland could do some of what I thought Dricus potentially could do in that spot. Obviously, they fight completely differently, and my disappointment was immeasurable that I wasn't getting the money line that I thought that I was going to get, but I just never even considered it. So not only would I have made the bag on Dricus, obviously, with what we saw from Izzy that night, I missed out on the bag that could have been a bigger one, betting on a gigantic number with Sean Strickland, and it's my own damn fault for that one. So I'm pissed off going into this matchup, Weezy. I am not happy. I've been banging the drum that Dricus du Plessis is going to be the next champion of this weight class for a good year and a half now at this point. I'm a big fan of this man. He's getting better. He's filled out in his new weight class. He is a brutal force of nature at this stage. You cannot get this guy off you. He can grapple. He can wrestle. He's more powerful and stronger than anybody at this weight class. He can starch people on the feet. He might be a little herky-jerky, and he might look like he's about to keel over and die from cardio exhaustion, but he has the mental fortitude to push himself through that, Weezy. He ends up finishing people late in fights because even though he looks tired, he just never freaking stops. He keeps coming anyway. So he's not a early round bust like a lot of people think he is. he's shown us time and time again that he actually can extend the fight. And if anything, his last fight against Rob Whittaker should have really opened up everybody's eyes. Is Rob just shot now all of a sudden because Dricus beat him? No, this man beat the brakes off of a guy who could be the champion of this weight class, if not for Israel Adesanya. Like, that was an incredible win. He's on a crazy run, and he's finishing everybody on his way up the ladder. Sean Strickland is a guy that I never expected to be holding gold in this weight class. Wheezy, never once in my wildest imagination would I have expected Sean Strickland to have UFC gold wrapped around his waist. But here we are. We've got a battle for cardio, a battle for power, a battle for technique and skill. I think Sean Strickland has a massive cardio edge. Even though I just talked about how Dricus can push his way through that exhaustion, obviously Sean Strickland is a man who still has that advantage in the cardio portion of this fight. However, we have seen Sean Strickland make a mistake. We have seen him get caught and exposed with that chin being in the wrong place because of the way he does the Philly shell and tries to parry every single punch that gets thrown his way. He can be caught. And with big, powerful shots and moments, we've seen him lose a decision to a guy like Jared Cannonier. These are paths to victory that I think exist for Dricus. And on top of that, I actually think Dricus might be capable of taking this guy down with his relentless submission opportunities and threats. I think if he clips Sean and hurts him just a little bit, that club and sub is definitely going to be available to him in this spot as well. I do think Dricus finishes Sean. Wheezy, I'm going to say it. I know Sean Strickland is all peeved off, and we've got the story and the back history of these two yelling at each other and the mean things they've said to each other, and that seems to have finally motivated Sean Strickland and gotten under his skin a little bit. He looks like he's in the best shape of his life. He's ready to rip this dude's head off, but that kind of emotion I also think can be a detriment. Sean Strickland's the guy who comes into every single fight cool as a cucumber, just likes to go out there and hurt people. He said it time and time again. Now coming in with the intent of hurting somebody, that can change the way you fight. If they can't rein him in, if they can't control those emotions, he might get a little aggressive. He might overreach. He might get a little stupid or a little loose. And if that happens, I think Dricus is going to cock him. Dricus and New. I've already got 2 units on the money line at plus 114, Wheezy.
Yeah, this is such an interesting stylistic matchup because styles do make fights. And the reason Dricus has been so successful at the UFC level is that he's got a very unique and difficult style to work with. Sometimes it's easier for instance, for a guy like Israel Adesanya, right? I think he should be like a bigger favorite over a Robert Whittaker type than he would be against somebody like a middleweight version of Trevor Peek, for instance, right? Like a guy that's just not technical at all, but he's a dog on a bone. He's going to come forward. He's going to throw hammer fists while standing. And he's not going to stand in front of you and point fight with you and let him, sit there and touch you and maintain range. And you're going to be biting on his feints. No, Trevor Peek doesn't feint. He's coming for your throat, And that's kind of like what Dricus is, right? I mean, this guy's got almost 100% finish rate. He's got 20 wins. He's finished 19 of them. The win that he got by decision, he beat 7 shades of shit out of Brad Taveras in that fight. I can't believe that didn't get stopped. So Dricus is a savage finisher. And what makes him so dangerous is, yeah, he looks tired, but he doesn't fight like he's fucking tired. You don't see people throwing 8-punch combinations when they're tired. And that's what Dricus does. Dricus waits. He gets out there. He's out at distance striking range. He kind of waits, and then he'll blast. He will blast. Every blast has a 5 or a 6-punch combination. It gets you moving backwards in straight lines. It's very difficult to deal with, and you don't know when he's going to do it. And the guy's got serious power in both of his hands. And then whether the blast hurts you or not, he's going to go back and reset. And then he's going to do that again. And he's going to do that again. And it's really difficult. If you're a technical guy that likes to point fight, that likes to stay behind your jab, that likes to land more strikes than your opponent does, stop the takedowns, keep it standing. A guy like Dricus is a fucking nightmare because he doesn't fight fair. He won't sit there and trade with you. He's going to be out, and then he's going to just go, Hulk smash, and then he just comes in and he throws everything with a ton of power. Then he goes back and he resets again, and he does it over and over and over again. What I'm worried about here is, how does he deal with a guy like Strickland that could potentially keep him on his back foot? Sean's pressure is difficult to deal with, and different fighters deal with pressure in different ways. Some guys that are pressure fighters get seriously pissed off when someone pressures them back. And Sean's the kind of fighter that doesn't really give a shit about his own safety. I mean, if you don't wrestle Alex Pereira, you're either brain dead or stupid. And he didn't do that. What did he do? He went out there and he boxed with him. And what happened? A very predictable result. He wound up sleeping on the canvas, because he's dumb, because he doesn't care about his own safety. Well, I think in this particular case, that's going to work in his favor, because if he continues to pressure relentlessly, it's going to be hard for Dricus to get those blast attacks off from his back foot. And if he does, and he doesn't have immediate success with it, and what I mean by that is when he does blast forward, is he walking on to stuff? Because people don't think of Sean as a power puncher, but a lot of people don't pressure Sean Strickland. Sean is the kind of guy who will hurt you if you pressure him. It's the guys like Adesanya and Cannonier that can sit back and point fight, right? That have some power, that have some precision, that can frustrate him a little bit. But if you let Sean be the aggressor, like he was in the second, or like he was in the Adesanya fight, like he was in the Abus Magomedov fight after he tired out, like he was in the Uriah Hall fight, the Nasruddin Imavov fight. The pressure was just relentless, That pressure can absolutely make Dricus, we could see Dricus react in ways that we haven't seen him react yet. And I think that that's going to be very interesting, because I think that people are going to talk narrative stuff about this fight. I don't believe in narratives with Sean Strickland. I don't believe that he fights with emotion. That guy spars more than any man on planet Earth. Sparring is something that you do in order to get better at what you do in the cage, which is actually fighting. And Sean, I think that's something that people don't talk about enough with him, is that when it comes to getting in a cage, getting in your underwear, putting on those 4-ounce gloves and living it for 25 straight minutes, that's Sean's game. It's not Dricus's game. Dricus has only won one decision in his career. Okay? Sean can punish you for a full 25 minutes. Sean is durable. Sean's gonna back you up, even if Sean should be the one backing up. So I think that Sean is a very interesting stylistic matchup. I don't think he's going to come in here emotional. I think he's going to fight. I think Eric Nixick and Sean Strickland are going to come up with a great game plan that can maybe find some holes in what Dricus does, because he is an unusual opponent, because he has a very difficult style to deal with, and because Dricus is a finisher with serious power and serious tenacity. Sean's gonna have to be a little bit of a thinking man's fighter here, and Eric's gonna have to get that game plan ready for him, because I'm sure there's something that they can figure out. If he could figure out how to fucking outstrike Israel Adesanya at range for 25 minutes, he can figure out the holes in Dricus's game. I think I'm going with Sean here.
Okay, all right. We are head to head for the main event, Wheezy. That's fun. That's exciting, and I can't wait to see how this fight plays out, man. I do think don't get me wrong, I'm not counting out Sean. I love Coach Nixick. I think he's one of the sharpest minds in the game. What he's done with Sean to this point already is nothing short of a miracle. So I do think that obviously there's some opportunity that's going to be a situation that Dricus really struggles with. However, for me, I just think these guys are both built to car crash. I've never seen Sean Strickland skate the outside, jab and move. Yeah. I've never seen him go backwards, and I've never seen Dricus do that either. When these guys meet in the middle, one guy is going to be forced to move backwards. The more durable guy, in my opinion, is Dricus. The guy that hits harder is Dricus. I think he's the more physically imposing man, and because of that, I think he's going to be the one that wins that battle. So I like it. We'll see what happens. And there's a bunch of you in the chat. There's a bunch of you listening right now, audio only, going, Clint, you're missing something. We already forgot something, a new tradition that we started just this year. And no, we did not forget. I was just saving it for the end. Dricus du Plessis is none other than the Link Memorial Dog of the Week, Wheezy. It was between him and Parsons. I'm going ahead and trusting my balls, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I've said Dricus is going to be the champion of this weight class. I truly believe that. Link agrees with me, and we are 1-0 on our Link Memorial Dog of the Weeks. I know it's a short dog. I know it's not sexy. I'm not giving you a plus 275, and I'm sorry. The only big dog on this card that I can really say that I like or could make an argument for would be Neil Magny, and I don't like it enough to make it. I can't put my boy's reputation on the line like that yet. Let's get a couple good wins under our belt, make sure he's happy with us before, my dog comes down and visits me in a dream and like paranormal activities me from the side of the bed because I gave him a losing pick with his name on it. So we're going to go with Dricus for the dog of the week. Wheezy, that's a wrap. UFC 297. Thank you all so much for being with us this evening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure you give our guy Wheezy a follow if you haven't already. You should have by now. Let's be honest. Wheezy, let the people know how they can support you and what you've got going on coming up here.
Yeah, the best way to support me is to sign up for the Patreon that I offer, and it's not something where you're not going to get anything for it. I've got the best analytics and statistics in the game. I'm currently building a new product this year that is going to start to help the people who buy my product exploit some of these lesser exploited markets, these less sharp markets that are out there on Prize Picks and Underdog right now, because they have to just set an over-under for significant strikes, for takedowns, and for fantasy score. And I've built this new analytical product that gives you all the necessary information to break down the stats behind those bets, know where the benchmarks are, and know where these things are getting mispriced. So look into joining the Patreon. I've got a great advanced stats package. I've got an advanced analytics package that includes an over-under betting template. And now I'm going to have DFS scores for DraftKings, FanDuel, Underdog, and Prize Picks, offensive and defensive stats per minute. So for the DFS player, for the gambler, for the Prize Picks and Underdog player, I've got packages for the do-it-yourself better that will help you have all the necessary information at your fingertips when you make your decisions, when you make your bets, and that's the best way to be a long-term winner. So please consider joining me on the Patreon, but also you can check me out right here on Pub Sports Radio 3 times a week. This week, 4 times a week. Stat Diggers, the DFS show on Wednesday, the watch along on Saturday, right here on Monday with my man Clint for the Die Hard MMA podcast. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Wheezy, tomorrow night at 10 o'clock Central Time. I'm going to break down all of these fights from a tape study and stats perspective, give you a dog pick of the week, finish with Uncle Wheezy's ass shaving of the week. And the last thing to do, we got to stack cashed tickets like flapjacks for UFC 297. You and I, if I have a good week, you're going to have a good week this week, because we seem to have a lot of similar reads here. So yeah, I think that we're both going to have good weeks this week. So I'm really looking forward to 297 and having some fun watching these fights and making money while doing it.
Sounds like a plan, Wheezy. We are in the boat together this week, and I love that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Get out there, spread some positivity. Let's have a wonderful second event of the MMA season 2024. We're coming for heads, baby. Let's go. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't already. Give me a follow, obviously, on all the other social media platforms out there. Total Takedown on Thursday. Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show on Friday. I'm going to hit up my guy Andrew and make sure we've got an episode of the Sharp Action Report ready to go for you on Friday as well. Might come a little later in the evening. We've got a couple of other things going on that we got to plan around. So we will get back to you on that one, but we will make sure to get that info for you one way or the other. Thank you all for being here and have a wonderful week. Let's roll.